morning. Well, I hope everybody's awake now. Thank you all for being here. We know you have many, many choices to make every single morning. That was Hypocrisy Be Thy Name by Lenny Gould that was shared with us. You can find Lenny Gould. It's LENNYGHOUL, Lenny Gould, on YouTube. You can subscribe there. That's Hypocrisy Be Thy Name. I think it's appropriate. Thank you all for being here. We know you've got many, many choices to make every single morning. Oh my gosh, we're getting our appeals already. Wow, that's crazy. Hey guys, I think we should restart. So everybody please come back because we just got a whole bunch of restrictions in a row. So that was fun. Okay. Welcome back. Hi. Hi, good morning. Hello. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. Tap like crazy, friends. Need you guys. Appreciate you very much. Let's get out to the FYP. You guys know the drill. A couple of special events I kind of want to talk to you about once we get some more people in here. So if you guys could really do me a solid and tap, I'll play a little mood music for you. I'd appreciate that. Hold on, where is it? While you're tapping and helping us get to the FYP, sharing is caring, liking is loving. You know the drill. Don't forget about our subscribers. Special event this morning. We're going to be spinning a raffle wheel for active subs. In fact, we're going to try to do a subscriber-only event every single week, if possible, as we increase our subscription targets. So that'll be coming up with the birthday girl, or whose birthday it was yesterday. That'll be Eve. When we do our announcements a little bit later on this morning, we will take care of spinning the raffle wheel. So thank you to all subscribers. Our next target would be, if we can hit our sub goal today, which is 25 subs today, we can do another event either next week or the week after. So we're going to try to continue to do that. You can either subscribe here or you can subscribe over at TikTok. A benefit of subscribing here is there's a whole bunch of brand new emotes. A benefit of subscribing, well, in both cases, you get absolute really sweet discounts on items in the merch store, which is located at FactsStillMatter.site. So we appreciate your support either way. It's a great way to support the channel. The more activity, as we've learned in these spaces, the better for the algorithm. So we fight through this every single day, and it's a challenge. You know, when we do this every single day, I'd like to think that TikTok would say, hey, you know, these people are here every single day. It's really consistent, but it's been a challenge to try to push our content out. So we need your help. So everybody in here, tap like crazy, like, share. You know the drill. Don't forget about joining our Discord. Don't forget about our YouTube channel. We are live. We are currently live and streaming on YouTube. If you guys want to head on over there, that'd be fabulous, because we are building up our content there as well. So if you do go to YouTube at some point today, please consider dropping a comment. Please consider sharing, liking, and then just letting us know what you think. So all that to say, welcome to a Wednesday. It is Hump Day, June 11th, 8:06 a.m. Eastern Time. I don't know if anybody had a chance to join myself, Felice, and Matt last night for another edition of the effing Fight For virtual town hall. I'd asked Matt specifically if he would kind of go through the UCMJ, you know, the Military Code of Justice, and I wanted to make sure that we kind of talked about some of the misinformation and disinformation, most of it perpetrated by legacy media, not willing to tell the truth. And I think it was a necessary conversation. You know, we talked about the specifics of, you know, the tip of the spear being the United States Marine Corps, not trained for crowd control. They're trained for lethal force, basically, as Matt described it. So the fact that they were called in just unnecessarily, and I've got some sound that I'll play that's connected to that. But Towards the end of the live last night, things went off the rails because the challenge was thrown. Okay, well, we got our restriction again. That's just a daily thing. All right, everybody tap like crazy. We just need to. This is just nuts. This happens every single day. I don't get it. Anyway, the end of the live last night kind of went off the rails because there was this camping challenge thrown down. Now, listen, I know Matt was in the Marine Corps. I get it. I understand. He was in some places that I never want to be in my life. I get it. I understand that Felice is totally aggro, a Division I athlete, and she runs 10 miles a day. But I grew up in the woods. I mean, I literally grew up in the woods. Now, I'll share this with you. I'm not flexing. I'm just saying. So just after college, I worked for the Green Mountain Club, and I was a caretaker in this building for 3 summers. I lived there for 3 summers. Used to have to hike in my own water. It was a 2.5 mile hike to here, and then the rest of the way, this is the summit of Mount Mansfield, if you know where this is. I lived there. I rebuilt this place with another crew. We built water bars, trail work, trail maintenance, brought in my own food, brought out my own food. I've been doing it my whole life. I'm just saying, if you want to throw down a camping challenge, I'm all in. And like I tell people, I'm not a stuff person, but the things that I have, a lot of stuff are music related, motorcycling and snowboarding related, and camping related, which includes fishing gear. So I did prepare. Yeah, again. So I'm just saying, if the die has been cast, I did not throw the die, so to speak. I'm prepared. That's all I'll say. I'm prepared for future. All right, it's good to see you. All right, I want to get into the topic today. The question that we're going to be asking, and I think y'all know my answer, but I'll be about other people's perspectives, especially as we're watching the comments today. Is healthcare a human right? As I've discussed many, many times in this spaces, I think every human being on Earth should have access to shelter, food, and healthcare. Obviously, water as well. Shelter, food and water, and healthcare. Every human being on Earth. I do not care your persuasion. I don't care anything about your socioeconomic status. I care about the fact that you should have access to food, water, shelter, and healthcare. And what's funny, I should say funny, not funny, ha, but funny, disgusting, is that people want to use things like that as political talking points, right? So we've got the bill that is now the big, bold, beautiful piece of shit bill that is circulating through the Senate. So we know that cuts to SNAP benefits in particular, which again would take food out of the hands of food out of the mouths of children and cut millions of, and eliminate access to healthcare for millions of Americans. The Senate is working on their version now. So I'm not going to say it's good news or bad news. I'm just saying that we know that this bill is not going to be signed. It's not going to be voted on as is in the Senate. Okay. First of all, there's a couple things, and we've discussed this before. There's the parliamentarian rules, and people in the Senate are just not necessarily in support of some of the bullshit that got slid in last minute, like tanning bed, tax credits, stuff like that. So this is reporting from Politico. The headline of the article is the Senate GOP finalizing scaled down food stamp cuts after backlash. So the House, led by Mike Johnson, of course, has been lying to the American public, saying that, no, we're not touching SNAP benefits. We're going to make the program better. Oh, no, we're not touching Medicare and Medicaid. No, we're just going to kick illegals off. Okay, it's a lie. So that we know that's a lie. And the Senate is confirming that because they say, okay, we got to fix this whole food stamp cut thing. Senate Republicans, this is reported yesterday afternoon. Senate Republicans are finalizing a scaled down plan to force some federal food aid costs to states as a way to pay for Trump's mega bill, according to 5 people with direct knowledge of the matter. The move to downsize the controversial House GOP plan comes after intense pushback from Republican senators. That includes some of Trump's closest supporters in the upper chamber, who are concerned that red states particularly would be hit with billions of dollars in new costs for SNAP. which helps feed more than 40 million low-income Americans. Gee, we've only been telling you that for years, okay? The reworked Senate plan would force states with the highest payment error rates to pay 15% of SNAP benefits, a lower rate than the House plan, which would require those states to pay 25% of benefits. It would scale down the cost for states with lower error rates, allowing some of them to avoid having to foot any of the cost share for benefits, according to 3 of the people. The cost share plan would likely still kick in fiscal year 2028 as the House plan does. Those senators are discussing if states would need even more time than that. States would still need to pay the increased rate of 75% of administrative costs for the programs as in the House plan, up from the current 50%. So, again, states' rights, pushing the burden. Yeah, we are probably shadow banned, guys. It's crazy. We really need your help. Can you guys just seriously, whatever you have in your gift box, if you wouldn't mind just gifting, commenting. I love the TikTok shop. Join the team with a heart, whatever it might be. We just need some activity. I appreciate y'all. So again, the House plan was to cut the federal program and then push the burden to the states, right? And we already know that states are already poor that depend on the federal government, which then specifically are blue states that contribute to the coffers. We discussed this yesterday. Some of the states, New Jersey, Massachusetts, California, Connecticut, those Illinois, get less than $1 back for every dollar that they spend or send into the U.S. government. Otherwise, like Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, those red states get between $2.50 or $1.50 and $2 back for every dollar that they send in, meaning that blue states supplement the difference. So here we are in this world now, in this bill to pay for the tax cuts, to pay for corporate welfare. The expectation is we're going to hide this cost among the states that are already underwater with their budgets. So how are they going to pay for these SNAP benefits? The answer is they aren't. They're not going to pay for it because they can't pay for it. And as we've discussed, the bulk of people that are on federal welfare, SNAP benefits, etc. Actually, I've got some data that I can share with you guys on that topic. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, and we'll get into the healthcare thing a little bit later because it's related. Let's see. Do I have that? Let's just go through this real quick because I think it's a really good, important breakdown for this particular part of the conversation. Everybody keep tapping like crazy. Really appreciate you guys. Please consider subscribing. If you want to support the channel, you can do so right here with my pay apps. You know the drill. All right, let me see if I can find it real quick. I pulled this yesterday. I got to get a bit more organized. I've been so busy trying to resuscitate my business that I have not paid enough attention to some of the organization that I use to be prepared for the show. Okay, so here you go. Yes, all right. So this is how the breakdown works. So we know that the bulk of federal income taxes are paid by blue states, California, New York, just because that's where the GDP lives. Don't forget California, which the criticism of Gavin Newsom is crazy. We can certainly criticize them for things, but it's the 4th largest economy in the world. They contribute billions of dollars every year to the federal coffers, meaning that they pay more in than they get back. Unlike a lot of the red states, right? So a lot of the red states, they are the ones who consume dollars. Okay, so here's an example. New Jersey gets 82 cents back for every dollar paid. Massachusetts gets 83 cents back for every dollar paid, meaning that they are in a deficit when it comes to federal spend. They spend more, they give more to the federal government than they give back. Mississippi, Kentucky, West Virginia, Alabama, and South Carolina are all above $1.80 that they get back for every dollar spent, okay? Blue states subsidize red states. And this is specific, again, for this conversation because what we just learned from the Senate is that they are going to increase the percentage to what the states have to contribute to pay for SNAP when these states can't do it already. Blue states subsidize red states. On average, wealthier blue states send more money to Washington than they get back. Red states depend more on federal aid, programs like Medicaid, SNAP, infrastructure funding, education support, and agricultural subsidies. Here's the irony, right? Red states advocate for smaller government and lower taxes, but rely more on federal spending. They rely on government handouts. They rely more on federal spending. While blue states often advocate for more federal investment, like we want to overpay for education, public health, infrastructure, etc., yet subsidize federal spending in poorer red states. Creates tension when that term fiscally conservative gets thrown out there, because the fiscally conservative states, so they claim, are net takers, and the tax spending liberals are net donors. And that's not Facts' opinion here. That's just the maths. That's how that works. So when you're having this conversation with your conservative friends and your MAGA friends who have no ability to be objective and are hypocrites and do not follow any sort of logical consistency, you can remind them of that. You can remind them that without these liberal havens like California, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, that they would not be able to subsidize their budgets. Now, Texas is a donor state because they have a large economy. Florida is a donor state because they have a large economy. But if you lost the federal revenues from these blue, liberal, radicalized states like the Gulf states would go, they're already bankrupt because they can't sustain themselves. So then that's a question, right? Should each state operate independently? If you can't fund your own budget, then you're screwed. And what I do find fascinating is the same people that are criticizing Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefits are the ones who live in states that would not have these programs without blue states. Make that make sense, which then will get us into our conversation about healthcare. So back to this story, this reporting on the bill. Senate Agriculture Committee Chair John Boozman, because the Department of Agriculture is the one that's responsible for SNAP, will brief his Republican colleagues on the plans during their closed-door meeting on Wednesday, that's today, as the conference discusses remaining pieces of the massive party line bill. His legislation will also include the House GOP's proposal for increased strict SNAP work requirements. We've talked about this before. It is just cover. They want to use things like work requirements. Who are the ones? There's already work requirements, by the way. We've had this conversation with our friend Croletaria. These things are monitored all the time. There is next to no fraud when it comes to EBT cards. There's 41 million people. I think Croletaria given some examples like less than 1%, and they investigate it all the time. Any significant changes and or behaviors, it's investigated all the time. Less than 1% fraud rate, I think Proletariat said, something to that effect. There's 41 million people on SNAP, 41 million. And it's going to go up, right? It's going to go up. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt that it's going to go up. So now they want to use words like work requirements. Who's the arbiter? Right? You're not working enough. You're not working enough. Well, don't you have a 13-year-old kid at home? Can't they go out and get a job? Yeah, right. It's so hard to get on SNAP or disability, whatever those processes like, right? I know. Listen, there's sadly, there's stigmas connected to people who use the system, right? There are stigmas connected to it, which is one of the reasons that they chose to go with the EBT cards, like the debit cards, as opposed to the actual food stamps. There's shame connected to it, right? It's unfortunate. It shouldn't be. If you have to make choices to feed your kids, you're going to do whatever is necessary, including petty crime. You see, and I know the conservatives don't want to believe this, but there is a direct correlation between poverty and crime. Nonviolent crime. Direct correlation. Shoplifting, whatever it may be. Now just ask yourself, if you're in a position where you're struggling to make ends meet and you can't feed your kid, wouldn't you do what you needed to do? It's desperation, right? Like we talk about, thank you, Lola, like we talk about this all the time. Change comes from two primary sources, either inspiration or desperation. Now, if your life changes in ways that are out of your control, that is still a change, right? So you may be desperate. What's the old term? Desperate times call for desperate measures. You're going to do whatever you can do. Whatever you can do to feed your kids. And which is why when we talk about this, as an empath, and as the most empathetic and smartest chat on TikTok, y'all, it's just how it makes no sense to any of us why we would not be just prioritizing feeding our children. But nope, we're going to pay for a military parade in D.C. We're going to spend $100 million plus to send the U.S. Marine Corps and the National Guard. By the way, they're no longer considered the National Guard because of Article 10. They're now part of the U.S. Army. So they're now no longer able to provide law enforcement support. They are the U.S. Army, which is then Insurrection Act, Posse Comitatus. So I've got some sound from Adam Kinzinger. I'll play that for you. But just think about that for a second, right? So again, Joe Biden was right. Don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget. So we know that Mike Johnson has been lying. We know that the right-wing echo chambers have been lying. We know that just because, not only because of what we read in the bill, but here's confirmation from the Senate. Confirmation from the Senate that's, we agree with the cutting of SNAP benefits, but we have to connect that work requirement. In fact, the Senate wants states to pay even more. States that already can't afford it. You're right. The budget is a moral document. Okay. Scaling down the House GOP's cost share plan may be more politically palatable for Republican senators, but it will save less money. Senate GOP leaders are pushing the agriculture panel to hit the $150 billion in net spending cuts while also figuring out a way to pay for the $70 billion farm bill package farm state Republicans want. That leaves a huge hole from the House's plan, which will cut $300 billion across SNAP. A spokesperson for the Senate Agricultural Committee did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Bozeman said in a brief interview on Tuesday that details of the agriculture piece of the mega bill are still in limbo. We are negotiating with our members. So just think about that for a second, right? In some minds of conservative Republicans, there's not enough cuts. Enough cuts to do what? Enough cuts to pay for tax breaks for the richest and for corporations, right? No modification to capital gains because, as we know, it's not income tax that generates the majority of revenue from the billionaire class. It's the capital gains, and it's all the loopholes that they have. They don't want to address that. They do not want to address that. They're lying to you. Of course they are, over and over and over and over again. At least in this language from the Agriculture Committee, they're admitting it. They're telling you that, we're totally going to cut SNAP. We just have to figure out how much. An increase to the defense budget, an increase to the budget for Homeland Security, and we've already seen what they've done. We've already seen Kristi Noem overspend her amounts and then get called out. Cutting social safety nets, cutting public health, cutting funding for the Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau, which brought in billions of dollars back to consumers, going after predatory lenders, right? Cutting staff to the IRS, which peeled money back from tax cheats so that we can give billionaires tax cuts. And we're going to make sure that we keep kids in America from eating. It's not hyperbolic. 41 million people are on SNAP. You want to tell me that every person that's on SNAP, by the way, there are people on SNAP. There are more people on SNAP in Trump states than there are in other states. So you can tell me if we only want to go after radical leftists. We only want to go after the radical leftists that are taking advantage of the SNAP program. It's just, I don't know, call it cruel, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Conservative states in our country would not survive without revenue, brain power, ingenuity, entrepreneurship. Wouldn't survive without blue states. You want to go it alone? Go it alone. No problem. Texas, you guys talk about seceding, knock yourself out. Totally fine. We'll turn off the spigot. Who are you going to trade with? Who are you going to have commerce with? Knock yourself out. Florida, you want to do the same? Remember that famous Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's got this giant saw and he cuts it up? South America, take it away. And he cuts off Florida. Psh, I'm down. I love you all. People that watch us from Florida. Francis, I see you. Just jump off. Just jump off the ferry, land in Georgia, work your way north. It's not opinion here, friends. These are the facts, right? these are the facts. These are the facts. This is the maths. Blue states pay more to the federal government. Red states take more from the federal government. You don't like it. You don't like it. You don't like blah, 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 spend this, blah, government, blah. You've been lied to. We know that. So we'll get into the specifics around healthcare because I think it's going to be disgusting as we go through some of the data. All right. Let me, where do I want to go now? Okay. So a couple things I want to catch up on, and then I want to remind, there's a couple of tweets from Elon overnight, which I think is fascinating. Is there somebody at my door? No. In just a minute, Eve's going to come up and we're going to do Eve, if you're ready, do you want to do that now? Maybe that'd be a good thing to do now so we can get that out of the way and then we can move on to the rest of our show today. Because we appreciate our subscribers, and I've always wanted, I've talked to my mod team about this, and I've always wanted to try to do more for our subs. We have the lowest price that we can for subscriptions. I've got to get better at adding emotes. I added a whole bunch of new emotes just the other day. That's certain things that we can do. So we decided to try to do some more subscriber only events. So I'm going to give the keys to the car to, remember, I told you guys yesterday that it was a certain person's birthday yesterday. So the way I look at it, because this certain person, who I won't mention, wasn't here and available to take their flowers yesterday. So I would say hearts in the chat like crazy right now for our friend Eve, who's still celebrating her birthday. Good morning, friend. How are you?
Thank you so much. Yesterday was so special. I didn't get to come up on the panel because I was surrounded by family, but I was listening and I was seeing everyone's love in the chat. I felt so special. Honestly, I can't thank you enough.
Good.
I love our community.
We love you, and our community loves you, and all of our mods everywhere. But today you're special. You're at the pinnacle because we couldn't celebrate your joy and your love yesterday. So do you want to explain to folks what's happening, and then we can do it?
Yes, absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to spin the wheel of names, and we're going to do that twice, y'all. So if you want to direct your attention to the announcement channel in the Discord, we're going to go ahead and we're going to spin the first wheel and get our first winner. Let's see. Our wheel is thinking. My connection is a little slow, so if it gives us a name, then somebody shout it out. Let's see, we're spinning, and FL Mini is our first winner. So congratulations, FL Mini. You will get a chance to pick your choice from the merch store, a t-shirt or a coffee mug. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see who our second winner is going to be. Spinning the wheel of names is thinking. So let's see who our second winner is going to be. Nettie Pie 79. Congratulations. Whoop, whoop. So like Steve said, we are going to try and make this a weekly, not monthly, a weekly thing. We appreciate y'all so much. Your support means the world to us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But we also need to do our regularly scheduled mod announcement too. We can't be distracted by the winners.
Yes, we do.
So good morning, everyone. Y'all know that I'm here to remind you to please support our fabulous herald of heroism, hastily halting habitual havoc. And he's here every day with that fiery feral fist for freedom, bringing you facts over feelings because facts still matter, and they always will. So if you have the means, let's help Facts meet his gift goal. And subwaves. I haven't even seen a subwave yet today. What is happening?
Right.
You could show support directly using the apps in the link tree of his bio, and you can find the Facts HQ and Discord link there as well. You can reach the HQ via FactsStillMatter.site. You can check out all the new merch. We also are working to try and help our friend Brett Cross. So I would like to invite y'all to participate in a dollar donation drive. We understand that times are tough and most people can't come out of pocket very much, but we can spare $1. And literally, that's all I'm asking is if everyone in here could help donate $1, that will make a huge impact. It's almost like a metaphor for what we preach every day. You know, these small actions make big impacts, especially when we work together. So maybe we can dig in and find a little pocket change and send that out to a friend who's already lost so much. But if you're just looking
GoFundMe,
for,
by the way, the GoFundMe for that is at the first link that is in my link tree. You will find the GoFundMe. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help Brett and Nikki move out of Texas or move out of Uvalde because they need to. The community has never been there to support them, as we've learned. So you'll find the link in details in the GoFundMe. It's the first link in my bio. And to Eve's point, if it's $1, if there's 425 people in here right now, if all of you gave $1, it would get us a long way towards the goal. Thank you in advance.
Absolutely. And it all adds up. I say this all the time. But if you're just looking for that fun free forum for the Facts family to frolic, then Discord is the place. And if the link in the link tree doesn't work, then you can just copy and paste into a browser or Google. You know that spiel. If that doesn't work, reach out to a moderator. We'll hook you up. When you join, please make sure you open a ticket. There's a couple quick questions. If you need assistance with that, just ask in the unverified lobby and we'll walk you through it. Now, if you haven't already, please click that follow or heart me up at the top of the screen next to Fax's name. You can join the team for the cost of a penny. You can do this every day, and it helps to the algorithm to keep us on the FYP. The main thing that we ask is that you interact in the comments as well as tapping your little hearts out. It's always free to tap and share out the live, and if you don't have any friends, just click the copy link. It works the same as a share, and no one will be the wiser. After this live stream ends, head on over to
Jujubug. Somebody will reach out to you. Mods, I think you see Jujubug. She needs some help. We'll make sure that we reach out to you, Jujubug. We got you. Thank you, friend. Sorry.
Oh, absolutely. We'll definitely help you, sweetheart. So again, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to Facts Still Matter there as well. You can like the videos, you can rewatch them for any information you may have missed, and subscriptions on YouTube are free, just like following your favorite creators on TikTok. Before I sign off, though, I want to tell y'all about this amazing group of creators that I've had the luck of connecting with. They're called the Bitchalani Brigade, and they are a coalition of creators that are dedicated to dismantling the patriarchy and fighting for equality for all women and non-binary individuals. The coalition offers representation from the LGBTQIA community, the BIPOC community, the disabled community, and the creators host lives that range from fun and games like a Pictionary night to spiritual and wellness lives, political lives, resource lives, such as the one that Mr. Wheels hosts. Everyone of all abilities, all political views to join. The goal is to connect with people from all walks of life. And the link for the website for the Bitchalani Brigade is the second link in the link tree of my bio. So you can check that out. I encourage you to do so. Lastly, be kind, smile at a stranger, and have a fuck your feelings kind of day.
Thank you so much, Eve. Again, happy birthday from all of us. The amount of work that our entire mod team does, I always joke with Eve because she says she's always looking for something to do. I'm like, be careful what you wish for. I appreciate you very much, friend.
We have a lot going on right now. Thank you.
We do indeed. We do indeed. Thank you for being here, friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
See you later. Real quick shout out to Karen. Karen, thank you for the $10 towards Brett and Nikki. What I will do is I will just contribute that to the GoFundMe on your behalf. So again, friends, if you want to help Brett and Nikki, if you got a buck, you can find the link to their GoFundMe that is in my bio. I don't have all the details of their plan. We just know that we need to get them out of Uvalde. That is our plan. So if you've got a buck, if there's 430 people in here, if you could each donate $1, then that's going to help us get there. So thank you in advance. And let's blow that number up, because I think it's safe to say that if you know Brett and Nikki, you know that they have been through enough, and enough is enough. So thank you all in advance. Okay, let's get to a few things. So just there, by the way, there's a decision by the appeals court. So this came down late last night. The Trump, this is reporting from Reuters again, the Trump tariffs may remain in place. It may remain in effect. You remember that there was a lower court in Manhattan, a 3-judge panel that voted to say you are using IEPA, which is the Emergency Powers Act, based on an emergency. They determined there was no economic emergency. So, and I want to tell you, I'm going to share this story with you because I think it's specific as it relates to how the Trump administration likes to message. Okay, so first, I'll read you the message. This is what he had to say. A federal appeals court just ruled that the United States can use tariffs to protect itself against other countries. A great and important win for the U.S. That's not the truth. What the appeals court ruled was Trump tariffs may remain in effect while appeals proceed. U.S. appeals court rules. So, in the right-wing spaces, when you're traveling around TikTok today, or if you're watching Fox or News Nation or Newsmax or whatever it is, you're going to hear them saying that what a great win. What a great win. Exactly. Protects us from what? What a great win. Okay, so a federal appeals court allowed President Trump's most sweeping tariffs to remain in effect on Tuesday night while it reviews a lower court decision blocking them on grounds that he had exceeded his authority by imposing them in the first place. The decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the federal circuit in D.C. means that Trump may continue to enforce, for now, his Liberation Day tariffs on imports from most U.S. trading partners, as well as a separate set of tariffs levied on Canada, China, and Mexico. The appeals court has yet to rule on whether the tariffs are permissible under an Emergency Economic Powers Act that Trump cited to justify them in the first place, but it allowed the duties to remain in place while the appeals play out. The Federal Circuit Court said the litigation raised issues of exceptional importance, warranting the court to take the rare step of having the 11-member court hear the appeal, rather than have it go before a 3-judge panel first. It should schedule arguments for July 31st. The tariffs used by Trump in negotiating leverage with U.S. trading partners and their on-again, off-again nature have shocked markets and whipsawed companies of all sizes as they seek to manage supply chains, production, staffing, and pricing. The ruling has no impact on other tariffs levied under more traditional legal authority, such as duties on steel and aluminum imports, something we've always had. Remember, targeted tariffs are effective. They've been used all the time. 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled on May 28th the U.S. Constitution gave Congress, not the president, the power to levy taxes and tariffs, and that the president had exceeded his authority by invoking an International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, a law intended to address unusual and extraordinary threats during national emergencies. What's the national emergency? Self-imposed, right? When you tell somebody, he's a little orange weasel-teated guy who cries wolf, basically. The Trump administration quickly appealed the ruling, and the Federal Circuit Court in Washington put the lower court decision on hold the next day while it considered whether to impose a longer-term pause. The May 28th ruling came in a pair of lawsuits, one filed by the nonpartisan Liberty Justice Center on behalf of 5 small U.S. businesses that import goods from countries targeted by the duties, and the other by 12 U.S. states led by the state of Oregon. Good for you, Oregon. Jeffrey Schwab, an attorney for the small businesses that sued, said Tuesday's federal appeal court decision was disappointing, but it did not mean the Trump administration would win in the end. Quote, "It's important to note that every court to rule on the merits so far has found these tariffs unlawful, and we have faith that this court will likewise see what is plain as day. That IEEPA does not allow the president to impose whatever tax he wants whenever he wants them. Congress is the branch of our government that is responsible for taxation. Okay, so the question is whether or not, what's the emergency? It's never been identified. And this lawsuit says that the president is overstepping his authority because a tariff is a tax. Yes, MAGA, I hate to tell you that, but a tariff is a tax paid by the consumer. The White House in the state of Oregon did not immediately respond to requests for comment after normal business hours on Tuesday. Trump has claimed broad authority to set tariffs under IEEPA. The 1977 law has historically been used to impose sanctions on enemies of the U.S. or freeze their assets. Trump is the first U.S. president to use it to impose tariffs. Trump has said the tariffs imposed in February on Canada, China, and Mexico were to fight illegal fentanyl trafficking at U.S. borders, denied by the three countries, overwhelmingly so, because we know that, again, data, and that the cross-aboard tariffs on U.S. trading partners imposed in April were a response to businesses that sued have argued the tariffs were not a legal or appropriate way to address those matters. And the SBA, the small businesses involved, argued that the decades-long U.S. practice of buying more goods than it exports does not qualify as an emergency that would trigger IEEPA. We have trade deficits with Madagascar because we buy a shit ton of vanilla. Madagascar is a poor country. Are we going to say that we need to go after Madagascar because they can't pay the same amount that we pay from the trade perspective? All kinds of nations that we have trade deficits with. It's part of the lie. Part of trying to convince you that because we are consumers, we are a consumption society, we want shit. We want a whole fuck ton of stuff. So we're going to buy more than we sell in many cases. That's how it works. At least 5 other courts have challenged the tariffs justified under the Emergency Economic Powers Act, including other small businesses and the state of California. One of those cases in federal court in Washington also resulted in an initial ruling against the tariffs, and no court has yet backed the unlimited emergency tariff authority that Trump has claimed. So we'll be watching this. I think, again, like I said earlier, the power of messaging. Trump administration is going to go out and tell he already did, he's going to tell his followers that it's a win. It's not a win. The expectation is because, guess what? Due process. This going through the court system. So what the appeals court ruled, we need more time to look at this. So the tariffs were imposed. The question is whether or not we are going to allow them to continue. Every lower court that has ruled so far has ruled to say, no, you have overstepped your boundaries. Government overreach, MAGA, right? Government overreach. You don't like that shit. Here we are. The court will eventually rule one way or another. Typically speaking, lower courts' decisions rarely get overturned in these kinds of things. The appeal process, typically speaking, when you're appealing, there's reasons that you appeal. I know it's different in criminal cases and civil cases and things like this, but it's very rare that something like this gets overturned. Very rare. We'll see. So that hearing is scheduled for July 31st. Okay, so there's interesting reporting from X that Elon Musk has been regretting some of the things that he has said. He's gone public and stated that because the feud has continued. I share that with you because I do not think it's a coincidence that he made a public statement in the middle of the night last night saying he regrets some of his posts about Donald Trump. Funny, because the U.S. has been pushing Starlink contracts at a lot of underserved nations around the world. That's just got to be a coincidence, right? That Elon would say something like that. That's just got to be a coincidence. There's nothing. I mean, of course, that Elon does not stand to enrich himself because of all these new contracts that might be signed with underserved nations. Now, because Elon is such a philanthropic, globe first, my pocketbook last, he would never, ever, 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 ever want to, make more money on the backs of underserved, right? Of course not. So, once again, follow what, friends? Follow what? Follow the money. So, funny that he said that. Okay, I'm going to touch on Los Angeles a little bit as well, because obviously we need to continue to talk about that. As we went through this exercise with Matt last night, we understand the situation. We know that the media on both sides of the aisle, I just want to clear this up right now. Legacy media in America is conservative. Okay, it's one of the biggest lies that's ever been told. Now, you have bias, right? I've talked about this before. You have bias, but then you have blatant, conspiracy theories. So you've got news organizations like, and I don't like CNN. I just don't like the way that their programming is done. Okay, but they're conservative. They're a conservative news agency. People want to point to like MSNBC. Now you can look at journalists, you can look at commentators, you can look at people who are, bringing you the news, and they certainly can lean liberal. No doubt about it. They can lean left, but legacy media is conservative. That's just the way that it works. So when you have legacy media on both sides reporting on the same event, the situation in Los Angeles, you're going to get a very different take, right? Fox has been pushing the fact that there's these violent mobs taking over Los Angeles. They're reporting on it that way because that's what the president is telling them to do. Legacy media is talking about, jackboots and the whole nine yards. So they are embellishing the reality of the situation on the ground, which is why you need to go to local sources. Okay, so the reporting that should be covered, actually, you know what? I'm going to pivot right there because I think the timing is great. So I want to welcome our friend Dr. Jace. I reached out to Dr. Jace. First of all, thank you for being here. I know you're probably up early to be able to do this morning, but the reason I asked Dr. Jace to come up is because you have been a foot soldier, like literally. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Would you mind filling folks in on what you've seen? And everybody, please gift the crap out of Dr. Jace for being here and joining us. Would you mind? Again, thank you. Would you mind just kind of filling in folks as to what you've seen on the ground in LA? Tell people about what you do and what you've seen. Thank you so much again for being here, friend. I appreciate you.
No problem. So here's the thing. I cannot stress this enough. What you just said is probably one of the most accurate things that I've seen creators say today. Is that the media, you can't trust any of them as far as, there's some that are obviously better than others, but in reality, they're there to make money, and they can't do that without sensationalizing something. And they're doing this in the absolute worst possible way, because when we first started treating people as street medics.
So you're a street medic. I just want to clear that up. You're a street medic.
Yes.
Okay,
yes. Got it. They were just standing around. It was boring. And I hate to say it that way, but it was just people yelling. Were they being nice? No, but who cares? I'm not nice most of the time. They're yelling at one another. It's to be expected. There are people there capturing their loved ones. So yeah,
people are angry.
They're upset.
Yeah.
But there was no spitting and hitting and kicking and screaming. That they were just yelling at one another, carrying. Of course, there would be people shaking their fists at, but they weren't attacking anybody. And then you see these ICE agents come through, and they're indiscriminately hurling incendiary devices, and I'm using that very generally because I don't know what TikTok friendly anymore, but.
I think that covered it.
Flashes and smokes into the crowd for no reason, just no reason whatsoever. And that escalates things. They're the ones, the protesters were being attacked. They were just minding their own business. Were they loud? Yes. Were they carrying signs? Sure. Did they like Donald Trump? Absolutely not. But they were not attacking anyone. And then the ICE agents, they start attacking. Well, that just makes people want to attack. And that's when things got ugly. But that's exactly what Donald Trump wanted. He wanted the escalation because he wants people to be at odds with each other, because that means he has an excuse to continue to escalate. And that's kind of where this is headed. And the thing is, people on the ground, they know that's what he's doing. That's why they've done an extraordinary job of controlling. I'm telling you, these people have way more self control than I would. I would have lost my cool a long time ago if I were been in their shoes, just for the way that they've been treated. The National Guard coming in was ridiculous. There was absolutely no reason for that. And then to escalate further to the Marines was so laughable. I just
so
was
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Were you, so I just want to make sure I got the timeline right. So you were, either volunteered or called to service, so to speak, prior to any ICE agents being on the ground. You were there just in case people got hurt, as a street medic would do, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So then as you described it, because there was this unnecessary show of force by masked federal agents who could be anybody, that's when things started to escalate. So I'm assuming you were starting to treat significantly more people at that time once the escalation happened. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Because the thing is, CS gas and flashbangs, they call them less than lethal now because they have to. They used to refer to it as non-lethal. It's simply just untrue. If you're standing
rubber bullets too, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're standing next to a flashbang when it goes off, it can liquidate your brain. Like, it would literally, the concussive force of a flashbang is enough to unlock somebody. These gases and things going off, tear gas, smoke bombs, they cause people inhale that, and it's not a small thing. We do inhale smoke, okay? Because this is not like smoke off a building where you're getting a little waft. This is thick, oxygen-stealing smoke. That's what it's designed to do.
Right.
Yeah, and there are children there, people with respiratory conditions, because they're out and about, because this is Los Angeles. And I'm not talking about just protesters. This is residential neighborhoods where people live that are being affected by this. And so when it escalates like that, it's like, what is even happening? And that's when we have to start coming in, is people, even simple things like they're running away from these things, and then they fall and get hurt or whatever, they hit with a car. And when I say get hit by the car, it's not just the ICE agents at that point, because you have people that are driving that are trying to get out of that situation, and they're not paying attention to pedestrians just darting across the street, because it is mass chaos, which is, again, what he wants.
So I'm going to ask you, and I know you will be, to be objective at this point. Like this, okay. And I know this is what we encourage, and I know you will be. So we always, when I have these conversations, it's always important to me to try to say, okay, let's be objective. Let's remove our political ideologies. Let's remove our opinions on a candidate. What you saw, objectively speaking, anywhere close, first of all, to what the media has been portraying, and secondly, did LAPD and law enforcement there have things under control?
Oh yeah, the news blew it way out of proportion. It was not, I would say, easily they made it look 10 times worse, because there were, like, I saw one of the things that they showed on the news was, I don't know if you saw it or not, where they had the one guy on the ground and he got kicked by a horse. Did you see that? I
did see that. Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, it was, and they're like, oh, did the LAPD do this on purpose or whatever? That's all conjecture. Of course it is. They show shit like that, like it's happening all over the place, and it's not. That was one isolated incident. There were things that were, that caused that to come into being. So, and I don't want people thinking that LAPD is blameless, because there's definitely I'm an ACAB kind of a person, but
sure.
They definitely, there was no need. We repeatedly LAPD said it's just peaceful protest. There's no violence. Over and over and over again, we would hear these things. People would call. They were calling me and saying, "Hey, we need you over here. We've got quote scrapes and bruises. Nothing major."
Right.
I didn't see any real violence
right.
until late Sunday afternoon, Monday morning. This is after the Marines had been called in and they were actively waiting to be deployed. And that pushed people over the line because they're like, well, hell, if you're going to come in here and attack us like we're insurgents from another country, then then this is how we're going to behave. And not even even then, see, not everybody was even like that. There was a handful out of 100 people, you might have one or two.
Like you said, because it got escalated. Tensions were already hot. I mean, let's go to the reality. Families were being separated. Kids were being pulled from their mother's arms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So people were already angry, right? So it's not, and then to throw them, and then that was, to your point earlier, by design. So the Trump administration, ICE, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, et cetera, they played right into that. They literally fanned the flames, as they say, right?
Yep. It's everything that they did. And it drives me nuts at the media. I wish the media would show the whole truth, because it would really, if we were at this point going to undermine Donald Trump's plan for America, the media backing out and looking at the big picture and showing like a whole section of protesters where you could see like 95% of them are just standing there, instead of focusing on the action over here on the side where it looks like everybody's just beating the crap out of one another. I posted a video, I don't know if you saw it, of when one of the police cruisers popped, where they had rolled the flashbang underneath it.
I don't think I saw it. I'm not sure if I saw that one. I'll go check it out though.
I haven't put it. I need to put it on my website. I'll put it on my my whatever you call it, my videos. I shared it in several Discords. But yeah, I was just panning around, just looking at people, and they're just walking, just as calm as anything. And all of a sudden, you hear pa-pang, and I turn, and you can see the fire, and then one right next to it did it again, because it called too, and it popped, and the crowd was like, "Oh look!" It was just that calm. Oh look, another one's on fire, because they're so used to it at this point. But they weren't over there trying to cause harm. When I looked over there, they were just standing there watching. It was not it wasn't like they were riding and beating the crowd. Then there's another situation. I haven't fully vetted it yet, but I want to see if I can talk to somebody who is in that area, where it looks like they're intentionally vandalizing their own vehicle, and I have to admit that looks a little sus on my part.
I've heard that, and we don't know for sure. To your point, like we don't know. That's something that needs to be that is a tactic. That's oftentimes what people do to try to similarly during the summer of 2020, when we know it was right wing agitators like the Boogaloo Boys, and they tried to frame, Antifa as the ones that perpetrated the majority of that violence, and we know that that's just not true. So these are the things that happen in authoritarian states to try to justify their argument. So It wouldn't surprise me. I'm assuming that you attend a lot of things like this as a street medic, and I know that there's a big plan for protests over the weekend, and we've already seen a lot. What would your advice be to people who are attending protests from a safety and security perspective, if you have any?
So I do. So there's two things. First of all, protect your mental health. And I say if anything is terrible about going into a protest that could become violent, you want to make sure you're in the best place mentally, because there are going to be people there that are intentionally going to try to push your buttons. The provocateurs are out in full force, and they're there to push the Trump agenda, which is escalate this so that he can claim insurrection. So when you're going out, you make sure that meditate, take a cold shower, whatever you have to do to get yourself in the right mindset to go out there and not engage with the provocateurs. Just don't do it.
If certain leafy substances may be available to you, depending on where you are, that may not be a bad idea. I'm just saying.
Yeah. If you have to have Mama's Little Helper going out, if you're old enough to remember Mama's Little Helper, I would not.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Gen X for the win, Dr. Jace. Gen X for the win.
I said it the other day, and somebody said, "What?" And I was like, "God, I'm old." So, yeah. So if you need something to maintain your sanity so that you're out there, go with friends. Never go anywhere alone. The buddy system is super important. Be sure you always have your phone. Record everything. go live if you can. So it's live streaming. That way nobody can say, oh, this is being clipped or whatever. Just do that. If you happen to be in an area where they are using smoke or tear gas, sorry, my brain is checked out for a second. If you pick up a traffic cone nearby, you can set it over the top of that and just put something over the top of it, and it'll just put them out. Good advice. It's just easy for me. It's easier said than done because I've been tear gassed. I've been in many times in my life. But
sure,
I don't. If you feel comfortable doing it, you can just set something over the top of it, a bowl, whatever, and it will smother itself because it does rely on combustion to do things. Ear protection. Please get noise canceling earplugs, not headphones. Headphones can come off. Headphones can break. Get those little noise canceling foam earplugs and put them in your ears because they're not coming out. And flashbangs are terrible. If you see one about to go off, you have a little bit of a time. Kick it out of the way. Get away from you. Don't let it go off sitting next to you. Put your hands over your ears and hum. The concussive force does weird things to your brain. If you hum when a flashbang goes off, it kind of counteracts some of that. It will help with that. You can buy if you're in an area where it looks like it's going to be really ugly and you want to risk it. I would rather you didn't. But if you're insisting on going out to those areas, there you can buy soft, lightweight body armor. And carry that with you, and if it looks like it's getting ugly, throw it on real quick because it will help with the rubber bullets. Carry an umbrella so that you can cover yourself. A leaf blower is if you have a battery powered leaf blower where you can blow smoke away or you can blow the canisters away, depending on how strong it is. Again, stay in groups. If you have to, plan it out. If you've got 4 or 5 people going, you're going to handle tear gas and you're going to handle incoming. I mean, seriously, people. It sounds
Sure.
It sounds silly, but in truth, we just don't know what they're going to do at any given moment, and you don't want to be caught in the crossfire of anything, and without unprepared, at least. So.
That is amazing advice. Again, thank you for being here so early, and thank you for what you're doing on the ground, Dr. Jace. I mean, if things change, like if you see things changing, or if there's any updates, we're here every Monday through Friday, 8 to noon. I'd love to have you come back. Thank you so much for doing this for me, my friend. I really appreciate you very much.
No problem, Steve.
Everybody, please follow Dr. Jace. And that was amazing advice. And if you're not in our Discord, maybe you could join our Discord. I'll have our mods reach out to you, and maybe you can just summarize some of the things that you just talked about, and we can create a sort of like a go bag, a virtual Dr. Jace virtual go bag if you're planning on attending events in the future. But thank you so much for being here, friend. I appreciate you very much.
No problem. You have a good day.
You too. See you later. That was awesome. That was great. So you heard it from the street, and I'm glad we're talking about it. And that's why I try to be objective here. Like, you're getting gaslight by the media. It doesn't matter who it is. They're going to tell you stories to support their viewership. So it's going to get sensationalized from the left that it's significantly worse than it is. It's going to get sensationalized for the right to justify why the National Guard and the U.S. military are there. Right? So the truth is somewhere. The truth is people like Dr. Jace that's on the ground. The truth is statements from the LAPD and law enforcement. The truth is statements from the mayor, the people who are there. There was no information. There was nothing here that required any of this. The escalation was brought on fully by the Trump administration, initially through ICE, then by deploying the National Guard. And again, as I believe we are now under Article 10, which means that no longer the National Guard, they're actually the U.S. Army, which means they cannot. National Guard can support law enforcement. The U.S. Army cannot because of posse comitatus. And then the U.S. Marine Corps being deployed. Facts are important, friends. Facts do still matter in this world. And we're going to do our best every single day to make sure we're cutting through it so that you guys can understand exactly what's happening. I think it's extremely important, right? Extremely important. Excuse me, sorry. That we have more people like Dr. Jace. And thank you again for what you're doing out there, friend. Front lines, literal front lines. Sorry, cat hair. God, it's everywhere. Just brushed him. So again, as a reminder, mods, if you haven't yet, or if Dr. Jason, if you're not in our Discord, if you guys wouldn't mind reaching out to Dr. Jason, see if we can get him to join the Discord, get them to join our Discord, and then we can build that sort of that go kit. So, do I think that they're following the rules at this point? Do I think who's following the rules, Sue? Do I think who's following the rules? I guess that's the question. Okay, that was great. Okay, so we were talking about stop lying. You were kissing the kitty. Oh, hey, nuh-uh. Anyway, no, I live alone. Anyway, we were talking about Elon trying to pull back on some of his statements. In regard to his, the rhetoric calling, Trump this and that, it's disgusting, blah, blah, blah. It's nonsense, this infighting back and forth. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, maybe I regret some of the posts that I said. Well, I'm sure it's got nothing to do with the fact that the United States government is pushing Starlink in underserved nations. But anyway, yeah, nothing to see here. Okay, and so we're speaking of, I got this from our mod team because our mod team is, we have the smartest chat on TikTok. We have the best mods on TikTok. Fight me. Seriously. Do you guys remember that story? It goes back a while, and thank you, Francis, specifically for this, where there was this gathering in Texas that the Trump administration claimed was a Tren de Agua gang gathering in Texas. Okay? In March, the Trump administration raided what they told the American public was a Tren de Agua gathering in Texas, arresting dozens of people at 5 o'clock in the morning. 2 months later, the Texas Tribune, again, local journalism, feet on the ground, so to speak. The Texas Tribune reports that none of the people they arrested had any connections to any organized gangs or even any criminal records, and that the Tren de Agua gathering they busted was in fact a birthday party. 47 people were arrested in total, including 9 children, although it's unclear if every person taken in was at the birthday party. ICE agents and Texas police who raided the birthday party even went so far as to attack the families with flash grenades, as Dr. Jace has talked about. That's some serious shit, scaring them and their children. Quote, we all started shouting that there were babies. Babies. There are babies, said one of the arrested men, who said he was celebrating the 5th birthday of his son and the 28th birthday of his best friend at a house they rented for the weekend. They were like boom booms. ICE also profiled one of the party attendees for his tattoos based on a thoroughly debunked theory that TDA members had specific ink. They told me to my face, you know what those stars mean. Those stars are styled by gangsters in your country, he told the Tribune. I said, no, I got these stars when, no kidding, I was starting to leave adolescence, started working. I got them because I liked them and I wanted to get them. When ICE has refused to name the detained Venezuelans, the Tribune identified 35 of them. Some were in ICE detention centers for weeks and were released with ankle monitors. One of the children was even kicked out of school due to missing too many days in detainment. Again, none were charged criminally. No charges were introduced at all. This is about something much bigger. If it happens to a person who's accused of being a member today, tomorrow, it could happen to you and to me, said Migration Policy Institute Director Muzaffar Christie. And if the alleged member of said gang does not have the right to contest charges against them, due process, habeas corpus, how can you know? How can you know it's you? How can you know it's real? The next person will have to deal with it as well. ICE has been putting innocent people through hellish, traumatic arrest events for months now, as Trump border czar Tom Homan, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller march blindly ahead with trying to deport as many people as they possibly can. Truth be damned. We've said this dozens of times. What we are asking for, and it's really, really simple. If you have suspicion of criminality, without racially profiling somebody, if you have, let me start the flash goal here. If you have suspicion of criminality, 40 individual hearts, friends. If you have some suspicion, then first of all, produce a warrant signed by a judge that justifies your suspicion. Investigate, afford that person or persons in this case due process, and let a court make that determination. I don't see how anybody could disagree with any of that. A birthday party, children, a kid was kicked out of school because he missed too many days. Now, I hope the follow-up story is to that school to say, okay, this child was caught up in this unnecessarily. I hope that school, because I'm logical, thanks, Weber. I hope that school does the right thing and allows that kid to come back. So that school then should be questioned as well. Like, what, were you not paying attention to the news? Did you not understand what was going on? Why would you kick the kid out? Yeah, house they rented. Exactly. Somebody called, Tracy. Exactly. So, welcome to the divided states of America. That story is horrible, but that's one of hundreds that we don't even know about. Right? That's happening every community. That's happening in Massachusetts. I don't know if you heard that story about the young man who was rounded up, got his way to volleyball practice. Well, the town rallied big time. They marched in unison, and he got released. So there are good stories out there as well. They're rare, but it just goes to show that people need to be in a position to respond. And I hope more people do it, which is why protest is important. Good morning, Dr. Michael. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, man?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind today?
Well, it's kind of to piggyback on what you were just now saying. Not even just people that they suspect of being undocumented, but I mean, in Oklahoma, for instance, and I'm sure you're aware of this one, but there was a family a few weeks to months ago, I forget, that were at home minding their own business. ICE raids the house. They dragged the woman and her two teenage daughters undressed out into the yard because they suspected that the house had been used for something bad. And these are people that had moved into the house recently, were citizens, tried to produce the IDs they had all of their IDs, phones, computers, life savings all taken. And then I still have yet to see a follow-up to that story where they received their things back. And essentially, ICE just kind of said, yeah, that sucks. This house was used for something bad, we think, and that's why you don't get into your stuff anymore.
Yep.
And people are just like, yeah, they probably deserved it, I guess. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. Like, that's...
Exactly. Exactly.
It just boggles the mind, man.
Which, if we're as we're talking this through too, which is part of the reason that I think we should all throw the suspicion flag on why it's suddenly okay for federal law enforcement officials to be masked, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's part of the larger conversation that needs to be had here. Like, why? What's the purpose of that? Mike Johnson claims because we don't want the people to dox them. So you don't want people to know who these individuals are? Like, they're supposed to identify themselves, their name, their badge number, whatever it might be. So you don't want to know you don't want to know that it's the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers that have been deputized or not. You don't want people to know that. But my gosh, right? So in this case, like you said, what if there's a criminal element, whatever, we know it's not. We know it's because their skin is brown. They don't even care anymore if you are a citizen. They don't even care. If there's any reason to suspect anything at all, they will just grab you and, whatever. We had suspicion. We have a right to do so. This is where we are. And I always talk about the hypocrisy of the right because they scream and yell about government overreach. They scream and yell about mask mandates and vaccines. And yet all of a sudden they're okay with doors being kicked in. Come on.
The hypocrisy of the past 4 years, hearing how even putting a face covering on would just absolutely cause their CO2 to rise and they would just die. But now ICE can't seem to breathe without a face covering. It's
good
kind
point.
of interesting.
Yeah, really funny how they're totally fine. No concern for their health. They just would rather protect their identity because they're actually not a federal law enforcement agent. They are instead some privatized right-wing fucknut who's out there taking people's rights away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I initially wanted to hop up just because I had seen the background. I realized after I had requested that we were talking about something else.
I'm going to get into it. I'm totally going to get into it. Yep.
So I didn't want to derail the conversation too much.
No, go for it. We can talk about it now.
Okay, so I did want to bring up the more recent thing. I know with everything going on in LA, it may have kind of flown under the radar for some people, but I'd like to just bring up for people that RFK did something rather alarming within the past day or so,
yes.
In that he essentially forcibly retired the 17 members of the ACIP, which is the American Council of Immunization Practices or Policies. I forget exactly what the P is, but essentially it's the CDC's council of, and this is so important, of unpaid volunteer experts in the field who get together and make recommendations on just vaccinations for the country. And the reason it's so important, and maybe this is just something that people don't know offhand, is that with those recommendations from the government, it's an official recommendation. So then it gets passed on to Medicare and Medicaid, which is like essentially where most guidelines end up coming from, just because it's standard. So if it's standard practice for them, standard practice for the government, it's pretty much undeniable that insurance companies are supposed to follow those rules. Well, now, if the government doesn't have those standards in place, which I fully expect RFK to elect some quote-unquote unbiased folks who are going to give...
Not elect, appoint.
Well, you're right. Excuse me, appoint. Some unbiased folks who are going to give some interesting recommendations and basically make it more and more difficult for people to acquire routine vaccinations because they won't be covered by insurance anymore. There'll be more hoops to jump through because we want to be unbiased and transparent and whatever other buzzword he wants to use that day.
Yeah.
And I just want to make it so clear that these people were volunteers who were not paid, who on record have made very clear any conflict of interest in documents that they may have even had and have recused themselves willingly. I mean, it's not like a mystery. These are public records, but it's things that they're just there to give medical recommendations on their expertise in the field, and somehow that's bad now, and now it's going to be effectively weaponized against people, so that disproportionately it's going to affect lower income and minority groups, because those will be the people who will have the most difficulty getting needed treatment and vaccinations that will now not be covered by insurance and other things. And so you're going to see a rise in preventable disease. You're going to see recurrence of things that we had previously eliminated, like we're seeing with measles, but actually there was a case, I think it was in Arkansas, but I would have to double check myself, of a death from whooping cough, just like within the past 24, 48 hours. Mm-hmm. And it's like, these are things that are so preventable. Like I was actually joking with somebody not that long ago. I was like, I actually, going into medical school at one point, was learning about some of these preventable childhood illnesses, and I was like, well, I'm not going to say that, because why would I? It's like a one in a several million case at this point. Like, yeah. And now here we are, 10 years later, and I'm just like, well, I guess I got to read up on it.
The headline of this story is that RFK Jr. removes all members of the CDC panel advising U.S. on vaccines. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK said he is retiring all 17 members of a crucial government panel of vaccine advisors. Kennedy is removing all members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, which advises the CDC on disease control and prevention. It's the latest move by Kennedy, a prominent vaccine skeptic, to change and potentially undermine vaccinations in the U.S. since he took the helm at HHS. He is going to appoint people who align with his beliefs.
Oh, 100%.
Folks, vaccinating people against illnesses that can be prevented and feeding kids should not be political. It just should not be political. And yet it's becoming such. And it's dangerous, and people are going to lose their lives. And this could potentially reset the world when it comes to the spread of communicable diseases that can be prevented through vaccinations.
Yeah, it's
right.
Yes, it's horrible because I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, thank you for jumping in today, Doctor. I appreciate the work that you do. It's good to talk to you, and please come back. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for jumping in.
Absolutely. Everybody, please take your family members to receive their routine vaccinations before they essentially become difficult to impossible to receive.
Really good advice.
I encourage you all.
Really good advice. Thank you, friend. I appreciate you.
Of course.
Okay, so that's part of the healthcare. It's a good time to segue to our healthcare conversation. Just as a reminder, there's a flash goal, guys. Need 27 more individual hearts, and we're 19 subs away from our next sub goal, so we can do another subscriber event next week. We're also raising money for our friends Brett and Nikki Cross. There's a link in the link tree that's in my bio. It's the first one you'll see. It's their GoFundMe. We are asking people if you've got $1 to donate. So if everybody who joins our live today can donate $1 to that GoFundMe, we can help Brett and Nikki get the hell out of Uvalde. That's the goal here. We are trying to help support them as best we can. We want to help everybody in our community, and we can't help everybody, so we have to kind of choose. And you can only imagine how often I get reached out to in an attempt to try to help, and I want to help everybody. We've had to be very selective. It ain't easy as an empath because we want to help everyone, but I think of Brett as a friend, as a dear friend, and I've gotten to know his family through him, and I think we can all safely say, without question, that they have been through enough. They have been through more than anyone should ever have to endure. And all they want to do is raise their kids, live their lives, and be left the fuck alone. And if we can help them by raising some money to support that effort, then we'll do that. So the GoFundMe link is the first link in my link tree. We're asking people to donate $1. If all 612 people in here right now could do that, then we're going to get really close to our goal. Thank you in advance. I appreciate you. Okay, so let's talk healthcare. That conversation with Dr. Michael, I think, is relevant because these are all things that we just make assumptions on. Like you get your first round of vaccines for your newborn. All these things are potentially under threat, right? Unnecessarily, right? Like I started the show. I want every human being on earth. I do not care your standing in life, where you come from, what your political ideologies are. I do not care. I want everyone guaranteed food, water, shelter, and healthcare. I'm so fucking radical. I'd like us to be able to boil it down to the simplest of terms. Had a good conversation yesterday toward the tail end of our live with Victoria as we're talking about the message from progressives and Democrats going into the midterms has to be about that. Why do Republicans want to starve kids? Why do Republicans want to let people die? Make them fucking defend it. Make them defend it. Show the voting record. Show the fact that they want to cut SNAP benefits and they want to kick people off Medicaid. Put posters up and plaster it to their faces. And then do it over and over and over again. Take the damn gloves off politically. This isn't complicated, okay? So let's talk about what universal healthcare is. First of all, it's a question. Do you all believe that healthcare is a human right? I think you know how I feel. I went back and forth with what I wanted the caption to read. You know, should healthcare be a human right, or is healthcare a human right? And the answer is yes. Yep. Right? Okay. Yes, it is. Universal healthcare, again, you guys are the smartest chat on TikTok, you know this. Universal healthcare is a system in which every individual has access to essential health services, including prevention, vaccines, treatment, rehabilitation, and palliative care. Without suffering financial hardship, it is based on the principle that healthcare is a human right. Here's some features. We're going to talk about this in a couple different turns. I'm going to get into Bernie's plan. I want to talk about why this should not be political and how it's, like I've said before, I'll say it again. You cannot make an economic or social argument against implementing universal health care. If you can, a convincing argument, I will delete my account and you will never see me again. That's how confident I am about it. Universal health care, where everyone is covered, regardless of income, employment, age, or health status. Financial protection, no one is forced into poverty due to medical bills. People in our country, as we've discussed time and time again, don't go to the doctor because of their inadequate health coverage. Yours truly included, I must admit. I've gotten better at it, but you got to balance it out. You got to balance life. People are not seeking treatment for things that can be treated because they don't want to incur the medical debt. People attempting to be responsible, right? Financial hardship, bankruptcy, public or regulated financing. You can fund it through taxes, mandatory insurance, or government subsidies. Okay, we'll talk about Bernie's plan in just a minute because it makes perfect sense. And then essential services that are guaranteed. Doctor visits, hospitalization, preventative care, ambulatory care, vision, dental, all these things, right? Again, it's not radical. Do not let them tell you. In fact, when somebody says that's radical, that's socialism, you could say, you know what's radical? That you don't give a fuck about people dying. That you don't care about funding healthcare for kids, pregnant women, food. That's what's radical. I'm on the side of human rights. What the fuck do you stand for? Nothing. Medical debts, exactly. The primary cause of bankruptcy in the U.S. is medical debt. There's a few types of systems, and I tried to kind of compare and contrast to see, where there's overlap. And there's some countries that can give you some examples. So primarily three models. There's the single payer system, which the government funds healthcare through all taxes. That's kind of what Medicare for All is, single payer. The government becomes the provider. Now people are like, oh, I don't want the government in that. But think about it now. Medicare, Medicaid is government run. We talk about the connection between patient and care. So this is the patient, this is the doctor. In a single payer system, you've got a relatively straight line to care because there are no pieces involved. In our system, we have patient, we have doctor, we have the health insurance companies, and then we have everybody else. Everybody else taking a piece of the pie, which is where the cost comes from, right? So single payer, nothing is perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect system, but I'm going to lean in on some inconvenience, even if there is any, if I know that I'm going to be covered. I don't have to worry about it. Providers may be public or private under a system of single payer. Canada and Taiwan would be examples of that. National Health Service, fully publicly funded. Did I see Anachronista? Yes. Good timing. National Health Service, fully public. Government owns hospitals, employs doctors, and funds care, funded through taxation. The UK would be an example of that.
Hello.
Friend? Hi, how are you?
Oh, I had my own healthcare stresses today, so I'm, fully aware of the flaws within the NHS system. However, I know that I will receive care. It's just that it needs to be funded and managed more effectively as a system. But I would far rather have that than have no access to healthcare.
Right. So the question then becomes asked, would you give that up? And the answer is no. Exactly.
No.
Right?
No.
Exactly.
Never in a million years. Quite literally, I am alive because of the NHS. And without access to any healthcare or medication as a disabled person, it would be hell. And
exactly.
I don't want to go there. We have our Timu Trump, Nigel Farage, who wants to get rid of the NHS and is telling people that it will be a benefit to us. But it baffles me that so many people fall prey to these populists that tell them that they want to do something that's against their interest. Wild.
Yeah, I mean, Me too. I agree. And in your country, in other countries that have a more universal model, your country invests in its society to say, we are making a commitment that we want our society healthier, which means you have different, you have fewer, ingredients in food. You regulate those kinds of things because the healthier your society is, the less cost it will be to provide care.
Exactly.
So if you think about our system, because everybody is in cahoots, we don't want to treat people here. We want people to be sick.
Because
we want people to go to the doctor, right?
Yeah,
it's wild.
Case in point here, in our local councils, most of the council offices have ergonomic chairs, because even something as simple as that can reduce the likelihood of an employee getting back pain or fatigue from sitting at an awkward position. So it's kind of, the mindset here is preventative. If we can prevent these things from happening, these health crises from happening, or the likelihood of somebody getting sick, if we can prevent that, it's more cost effective for employers, and it's better for the citizens.
Agreed. Would you mind, it's going to take a quick break. Would you mind just telling people, if you decide, if you wanted to make a doctor's appointment that would be, non-elective, like you go to your physician and then you need to go to the doctor. Can you just describe, because I think that's where a lot of the confusion lies for a lot of people who don't understand, because people want to say, well, you got to wait months and months and months and months and months. Can you just talk about what that would be like for just a normal person going for a routine doctor's visit? And I'll be right back.
Sure thing. So here, if you need to see what I think you in America call family doctors, for us it's a GP, a general practitioner. You call your GP surgery and request an appointment. We've had so much underfunding and cuts that now it can take a bit of time to get an appointment, but it's the maximum that you will wait to see a GP is a couple of months. But for telephone appointments, I often get them on the same day. It's pretty quick. We used to have a wait time of literally the same day before lots of austerity cuts. But if you need to then see a specialist, your doctor will refer you to that department, and you will wait maybe a couple of months for that. It's post C19 backlog has kind of put pressure on wait times quite a lot. But the max time to see them, the maximum I've waited to see a general practitioner is 2 months.
You see, that's no different. I think in many cases, that's better than what we have here, and yet we have to pay for it. So that, again, I'm glad you took that through. I heard it. I'm glad you took that through, because I think that's a really important point, right? We know that the criticism has been, people want to say, people got to wait months. Well, if you want to schedule an elective surgery, then you might have to wait months here, depending on backlog, like you said. But if it's emergent, if you've got to get in, you're not going to be delayed. You're gonna be seen, right?
Again, a combination of austerity policies and backlog from C19 have caused increased wait times even for urgent treatment. However, it is something like wait times are going down, and in part because funding has been organised a little bit differently by this new government. But the day I found out how much it costs to get an ambulance in America, I thought
it's crazy.
I thought somebody was lying to me. I did not believe it. My brain could not comprehend. And
$1,000 in some cases or more. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I've read up to $10,000.
Yep. Depending on how far, depending on what's needed. Exactly.
Yeah,
think about that. That's nuts.
wait time here is getting worse a little bit. Sometimes it can take up to 4 hours. In some areas, it's very much a postcode lottery. But when you see an ambulance, again, because investment hasn't been put in to most hospitals for quite some time, you quite often find yourself waiting outside in the ambulance bay for another 3-4 hours. But if it's
if you're lucky to get one, even
if it's something like a heart attack, you'll be seen much quicker. They do prioritize based on the urgency of the condition.
Well, the timing was perfect. Thank you for jumping in and taking us through that exercise. I really appreciate you, and stay healthy.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. Have a good day. See you later.
Bye.
All right. Bye. So is an example, right? And again, facts are important here. No system is perfect, but you ask anybody who is on a system of universal health care if they'd be willing to give it up. They're going to complain about it. You're complaining about your healthcare system, so you give it up? Oh, fuck no. Why would I give it up? You kidding me? Number one in cost, the United States, 42nd in outcome. We'll get to the specifics around that in a second. So then there's multi-payer. So the three primary levels of universal healthcare, single payer, national health services, and then the multi-payer or insurance-based universal coverage, which is multiple insurance, both public and private, must offer coverage to anybody. So between public and private, they must provide it. Government regulates prices and access. Germany, France, and Japan. So it's kind of an amalgamation of the other two. There's a few more people involved, but it's still guaranteed for every citizen. The U.S. healthcare system versus other parts of the world, right? So access, universal, guarantees everyone. In the U.S., there's estimates between 25 and 41 million people who are uninsured or underinsured. Very rare instances of financial hardship under universal healthcare conditions. Medical debt, number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Cost per capita, lowest in countries who have universal healthcare. United States, highest in the world. Number one in cost, 42nd in outcome. Often better under universal healthcare coverage. Outcomes are significantly better. Why? Because in countries who provide universal health care to their citizenry, it becomes preventative. Our system is based on reaction. People go oftentimes when it's too late. There are numerous diseases that can be prevented. Okay? As a 57-year-old male, even though I know I look like I'm 20, said no one ever. When you get to this point in your life, there are certain things you need to have tested for the plumbing. Like these are kinds of things, prostate cancer, for example, is something that can be detected early, treatable. People don't go to the doctor, and these things become a death sentence. It's unnecessary, which proves, again, that conservatives do not give a fuck about human beings. Don't care. All right. Benefits from a system of universal health care. Improving public health and life expectancy. What could be more important than that? Feeding kids, number one for me. Feeding children. And then improving public health and life expectancy. What is wrong with that? I know. It's radical. I get it. Reduce medical bankruptcies. What would be the argument against that? Simplifying administration, patient, doctor, is connected to it. We know that there is medical racism. We understand that. So let's remove every single, medical bankruptcy is immoral. I totally agree. Let's remove as many systemic racist barriers as we can, including in our healthcare system. Benefits, again, improving public health and life expectancy, reducing medical bankruptcy, simplifying administration, and enhancing social equity. Like I said, there is no social and or economic argument against universal health care. None. Challenges, because there are some, we're being objective, requires a lot of government coordination. We do it now, though. We have a system. We have Medicaid, Medicare. It's a system that works. The reason that it works, the reason that it's effective, is because there's no middlemen. The administration costs are cut in half. And what conservatives don't understand, what collective bargaining is. So the reason that universal health care works in a lot of other countries is because everybody, all the citizenry, is involved in the collective bargaining, which is why you can get pharmaceutical costs cheaper, because government then can negotiate the cost of said pharmaceuticals. Why, again, do other parts of the world have cheaper access to pharmaceuticals? That's because of collective bargaining. Same thing would apply here. Imagine the power of 350 million Americans saying, here you go. Let's see. We pay $1,000, whatever the number is. We pay $1,000 for insulin in the United States because the pharmaceutical companies want their slice of the pie, and because the American government is too fucking stupid to know better. So we're going to charge the American consumer $1,000. UK, Canada, because they're working together, because the government is the negotiator, it's like $25. It's like, why would you not want to make that argument? Tax-funded systems may face wait times or budget limits. Again, we just discussed that. We have wait times here. The only thing I could not find was a comparative on wait times. Now, again, being objective, if you wait a little bit longer for an elective procedure, but you know your procedure is going to be paid for, who fucking cares? If it's emergency, you're going to get treated, right? It's just, who cares? Like if you want to get your tummy tucked, sorry, you got to wait a little bit longer or whatever. I don't care. So you wait. Who gives a shit? And then transitioning from private-based system like we have here can be politically complex. Doesn't have to be. Elect progressives. Doesn't have to be politically complex. It can happen. It can happen. And you can scare the shit out of corporate America. As I've mentioned to you guys, I'll get into the financials. A $4 trillion profit, an industry, a for-profit industry, a for-profit industry in America. $4 trillion in revenues in 2023. That'll be 4 trillion with a T. And people are dying because they don't have health care. Okay. In short, universal health care ensures that everyone gets the care they need without going broke. It's a common feature of advanced democracies worldwide, though implementation varies in different ways. And yeah, we don't have it. And we're the only one. So here's a breakdown. Let's talk about the ones that we just identified: UK, France, Taiwan, Japan, and we'll just compare. These are the things that they have in their systems. Again, not every system is perfect, right? We know that, okay? Not every system is perfect. Guys, again, if you guys can continue to, we're 19 subs away from our next target to be able to do another sub event. We'd appreciate that. There is still a new gifting goal. If you want to support the channel, you can do so right here. These are the pay apps. You can also subscribe either at FactsStillMatter.site or, of course, here on TikTok. Thank you all in advance. Appreciate that. Don't forget to join our Discord. And if you're over watching on YouTube, hi, drop a comment, follow us over there. Thank you. All right. So these are I want to talk about the system type that these countries have, how it's funded, who the providers are, and what are the key features. Okay. And I want you guys to think about what the rest of the world has. We speak of this in terms of American excellence. Nope. We can't even feed our own citizenry. We can't make sure everybody has healthcare, clean water. Okay, so these are what other countries have. And I want to share this with you because I want you to stop settling. I don't want you to listen to your Democratic elected officials, either a Democrat or Republican, tell you, yeah, we're looking to expand the ACA. No question. I don't want expansions to the ACA. I want what they have in other countries. I'm paying enough in taxes. You guys can afford it. I don't want you to be talking about expansions to the ACA. I want universal health care. What are you going to do to make it happen? Okay, so these are the examples. In the UK, thank you, Anachronista, they have the National Health Service, or the NHS. It's publicly funded through taxes, government owned. Government owns hospitals and employs doctors. Care is free at the point of use. That's the NHS. And I try to simplify this as best as possible. In Canada, single payer, federal or provincial taxes, private, non-profit, that's key. Government pays private doctors and hospitals no out-of-pocket cost for essential services. Okay? France, multi-payer with universal coverage. It's funded through payroll tax and government subsidies. It's private. regulated through providers. Everyone must have basic insurance. Government covers most, if not all, costs. Supplemental plans are common for specific needs. So they have a bit of a hybrid, right? But again, everyone must have basic insurance, and the government covers that. Japan, statutory health insurance, it's called. Employer and individual contributions plus the government is how it's funded. It's private, non-profit. All citizens must enroll in public plans, and then the prices are regulated based on income. That's interesting. Germany, social health insurance. It is funded through payroll taxes and the government. It's private. Again, nonprofit is a theme here. Multiple nonprofit sickness funds, universal access with a rich benefits package, again, funded by payroll taxes and the government. Okay. In Australia, it's hybrid. It's Medicare plus private insurance. This is what you hear oftentimes as a potential solution here. Taxes, Medicare levy plus private insurance premiums. It's public and private, which means it's who owns it? Hold on. What did I do? What happened here? Where was I? Everything just flipped on me. Hold on a second. I'll get there. I was just doing the breakdown. Where is it? Stand by. Okay, here we go. Australia, hybrid Medicare. So how it's funded, it's public and private. Who owns it? Public sector and the private sector. Medicare covers basics, private insurance used for extras and quicker access. So like emergency care, you can go to your doctor, that's covered. If you want quicker access, like you want the VIP line, whatever that looks like, that's what Australia offers. Taiwan, single payer, payroll and supplemental taxes is how it's funded. Mostly private, but nonprofit. Smart card tech and low administrative costs. It's extremely high public satisfaction. And then the US, mixed, private dominated. Private premiums, employer contributions, and some pay taxes. Private, for profit. No universal coverage, 25 to 41 million people uninsured or underinsured. Fragmented public programs like Medicare and Medicaid. So as you can see, the nations that we just discussed, relatively developed. Canada, the UK, France, Japan, Germany, Australia, Taiwan. All nonprofit, all guarantee access for their citizens. They do it in different ways. Primarily, it's public funded and or government funded. The United States being the only exception. Now, what do those other countries have that we don't have? Obviously, they have the health insurance. Their costs are significantly lower per capita, and they have outcomes that are more significant on the positive side. The United States being the only one. Number one in care, 42nd in outcome. No, I'm sorry, number one in cost, 42nd in outcome. Takeaways, universal coverage. Countries tailor their models based on their culture, their politics, and their economies. Private providers are common. Even single-payer systems like Canada and Taiwan often rely on private delivery of care, but it's paid for by the government because the government owns the hospitals and the doctors in this case, but private is available to supplement. Cost control varies. Systems with price negotiations or global budgets pay significantly less per capita than the U.S. because of the power of collective bargaining. The government negotiates on behalf of its citizenry, right? We talk about this in terms of how do we get the lowest price? You do it through leverage, right? Just think about typical purchases, right? The more you get a bigger discount, the more you buy. You get better rates on pharmaceutical access to medical devices, the more people who are involved. The U.S. stands out because it spends significantly more per person than any other country in the world, but does not provide universal coverage, leading to higher administrative costs and worse life expectancies. Here you go. U.S. ranks number one in lower life expectancy. Average life expectancy, again, keep this in mind. Keep this out in your head. Number one in cost, 42nd in outcome. We do not guarantee health insurance, healthcare to our citizenry. We have the lowest life expectancy of the countries that we just discussed. UK, Canada, Germany, France, Japan, Australia, what's the other one? Australia and Taiwan. 77 years is the life expectancy in the US. It's going down. It was 79 4 years ago. And infant mortality is the highest, 5.4 infant deaths per 1,000 based on no access to healthcare. The next lowest on life expectancy is 81, and that's the UK, because everybody smokes over there. Different conversation. Why are we settling for this? Why? Why are we settling for this? Why are we accepting this from our elected officials? Why? Why are we not demanding universal health care? This is a 75-25 issue. Most people who have a brain in our country understand that we pay way too much for health care. And I think people are afraid of the term universal health care. Socialist. Oh, it's socialist. Damn fucking socialist want us to have free health care. Damn it. Look at how stupid that is. All we want is to be able to live a healthy life. What people don't even understand is the economic impact on this. As somebody who worked in corporate America, we were always trying to find ways to create more efficiency within our organization. We had a company that had 1,250 employees across 2 locations. I was responsible for 450 in my pillar, right? And we always talked about this. I talked about this with my leadership team, the people that reported to me. And like, what's the reason that we're not hitting some of our targets? The common theme was productivity. Losing time to people who want to have a family, losing time to sickness. You know, we've got a situation where our climate dependent, you know, like we have a lot of people that just couldn't make it to work on days that we were blizzard. So we implemented a work from home policy prior to COVID. Then C-19 hit, and then what we saw? What we saw when C-19 hit, we saw our productivity increase 15 to 20% in many cases with many traditional KPIs. Fewer days off, fewer sick days. People could still work, and they were more productive. And the reason that I decided to leave corporate America is because we had every measurable stat to continue to support our employees through a program that allowed them to work remotely 3 days a week. And because of conservative leadership in that organization, they're like, no, we have this building. You can only get the job done if you're collaborating, sharing thoughts and ideas. And I'm like, do you want to have this myth of collaboration and sharing employee ideas, or do you want the data to tell us that we're more productive? We had the 2 most profitable years in the last 30 in the company that I worked for during that time when people were working from home, right? So that's part of what we're talking about here. Listen to what people are telling you. I don't need a fancy desk. I don't need a desk phone. I don't need to smell somebody burning popcorn in the microwave, because that happens. If you've ever worked in an office, you know exactly what I'm talking about. People just want to be able to fucking live. People just want to be able to work where they are the most productive and the most efficient. The data told us all during C-19 that our country gained efficiencies because of that. The problem is real estate. People who own the buildings or own these businesses invest in these office spaces, and then they're 25 to 30% occupancy, and they are losing money. So they want to force their employees to come back to work. And then what happens? You lose productivity. Exactly, Frodo. And I did this exercise, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for me when I decided to leave corporate America. I did that exact exercise. Let's compare overhead to what we have here to the productivity that we're gaining. And my side won the argument. I remember presenting that to the CEO, because I was a C-suiter. And I remember that sitting around with my peers, we were on a retreat, and I knew this was going to cause tension. I didn't care. I told him when he hired me for the job, I said, I am not a yes man. I am not going to just agree with you just because you say something. It's like, I don't want you to be. Well, come to find out, he did want me to be. So I presented the argument. We've got all the data. It's all right here. It tells us everything we need to know. We don't need to do this. We don't need our employees in the office. You can invite them in for special events. If you want to have unity, you can do it once a month. People will come in for that. You can make the option. If people want to come in, they can come in. But you don't need it. How about instead, we consolidate our office space? Do we need 5 floors? Why don't we rent that out? I got an idea for you. Why don't we I presented this. Why don't we turn the basement, since we only have 10% occupancy down there in general, into a daycare that would serve the entire community? Not just ours, but the entire community. And it was too good an idea. They didn't want to do it because they didn't want to set a precedent. I'm like, okay. I remember I got interviewed for a local TV station, and I said that publicly, and I got in some shit. because I'm like, yeah, we've even considered opening up a daycare center in the basement of our building since we don't have we're underserved. And all of a sudden I got a phone call like 5 minutes later, like, did you really just say that publicly? I'm like, yeah, I did. Didn't go over too well. Anyway, I digress. The point is that employee satisfaction is a measure, right? Is something that's done, whether it be through Gallup or through Pew. These are things that are measured. And time and time and time and time again, people say, I just want to have the ability to have some flexibility in my work-life balance. People will abuse it because every system gets abused. I understand that. But the data, the maths told us in corporate America that productivity comes from the ability for people to control their own lives. People want to work. People want to do their job. People want to exceed. My pillar that I managed, the 450 people that I managed, we had massive growth targets and people were striving for those, which again is, humbly speaking, it was a loss when I left my job. They knew what they were losing, but I'm like, fuck y'all. If you don't give a shit about your people, I'll figure something else out. Cost me a lot of money, no doubt about it. It was a financial mistake and a sacrifice that I made, but I don't regret it one bit. I do not regret it one bit. Anyway, U.S. healthcare system generates hundreds of billions of dollars annually, making it one of the most expensive and commercially driven healthcare systems in the entire world. Here's the breakdown. Private insurance companies, top 5 insurers, average over $75 billion in profits annually. Profits. Business model. Collect premiums, limit payouts, like as in deny claims. Collect your premiums and deny claims. United Healthcare, okay, the Luigi effect, right? Somebody who worked in that industry, okay, indirectly. I didn't work in healthcare specifically, but I worked in financial services and insurance was one of our pillars. It is a line item in the industry. Claim denial is a line item, okay? So when you're building your profit model on collecting premiums, there's a massive chunk of revenue there. And then you look at your business model and say, okay, and then on average, we will deny between 25 and 30% of all claims, which becomes, again, premiums without the payout, profit center. And then, of course, they spend heavily on lobbying. That's just private insurance. Don't forget, again, these are all the people that are involved in this process. Private insurance, pharmaceutical, hospitals, health system, medical device companies, and then the middlemen. These are everybody. Remember the model? Here you are. You just want to get your shit fixed. Here's your doctor. In our system, you've got private insurance, you've got pharmaceutical, you've got hospital health systems, you got medical device and equipment companies, and then you got the middlemen. And they're all in the middle. They're all preventing you from getting the care that you need at an affordable price. So private insurance, $75 billion in profits in 2023. Pharmaceutical companies, U.S. drug prices are between 5 and 10 times higher than in any other developed nation in the world. No reason other than we don't have universal health care and we don't have the benefit of a collective bargaining, the lobby. Big pharma net profits, nearly $250 billion annually. U.S. does not negotiate national drug prices, unlike other countries, enabling excess pricing. We just don't do it. We just don't negotiate because we don't have a system that supports it. Why? Because pharmaceutical drug companies are lobbying politicians to make sure that we don't have it. Hospital and health systems. Many claim to be non-profit in name, but operate with large surpluses and high executive pay. Now, this is personal. So when my daughter was sick, we had, I learned a lot, and I want to thank this person. She's no longer with us. Her name was Mary Assel, Assel. She was an incredibly kind individual. She was our patient advocate. So I was navigating getting my daughter through cancer treatment, raising 2 boys, and trying to figure out how to not get screwed by the insurance company. I had no idea that these programs even existed. So I started to ask questions like, why, can I get an itemized bill? Because I'm just curious. And she's like, I'm going to warn you in advance what you're going to see. So when I'm looking through the list of items, right? I'm looking through the list. People joke about, the $1,000 hammer that the U.S. military pays. One that stood out to me in particular was when you did the shift change, and then the shift change when you're being for pediatrics. I'm assuming it applies to other people who are hospitalized. So my daughter was in her inpatient stay for radiation and chemotherapy. It was a 5-day stay. Then you'd go away for 7 days, and you come back 7 days later for another 5-day stay. They would change the sheets every day. Do you want to take a guess how much, not the sheets themselves, but the service of changing the sheets cost? $1,000. I shit you not. It's $1,000. I said, don't worry, I'm not going to change the sheets. And they're like, it's part of the process. I said, I'll take care of it. I'll bring my own. I brought in my own sheets. Guess what? It was still on the bill. It was still on the bill. So I've got some more. I got a request. I want to bring up Devo because I think Devo works in health insurance. So I'll go through that. I've got more. That's nothing. That's nothing. Good morning, Devo. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
I put in the request because I work in health insurance. I worked in it before the ACA and after the ACA, and not just medical. I also work in things like disability, short-term disability, statutory plans. So I've had a lot of experience in all sides of it. And that there's not, with regards to just universal care in general, there's not only the health insurance piece to think about in getting health care, but also, and you probably ran into this with your daughter with cancer treatments, is time off work for yourself or others if you need care. Most states, federally, you have the Family Medical Leave Act where you can get 12 weeks of unpaid leave and job protection. Correct. But other than that, unless your state has a plan in place, your employer is not required to give you short-term disability. They're not required to give you any leave at all. So you are,
and in some cases, it doesn't even apply. Like even in some cases, depending on what it is, whether you're caring for a loved one, you may not even be eligible for some company-run short-term disability plans, which is just immoral, in my opinion.
Yep. Generally, short-term disability plans are just for yourself. There could be covered leave plans to care for others, but once again, employers are not required to give that to you. And even like I'm in New York State, and we have statutory plans, but for if I'm out on disability, it covers 50% of your salary up to $170 a week. That doesn't do shit. Nobody can live on that. And so that's the other side of it too, is taking into account time off for work. If you're in a state that doesn't require any of those benefits, and let's say you fall and you hurt and you work in a factory and you break your leg and you can't work, well, guess what? You are SOL. Unless you have money saved up, you are completely screwed. So it's not only, like I said, just the health insurance side of it, or if you have a child. Some companies, even if they offer short-term disability, you get 6 to 8 weeks off if you have a child, and then you have to go back to work. And some of that is only a percentage of your pay.
Yeah, and that's just specifically, maternal leave. Companies don't address paternal leave. We created this, and we introduced this idea that I just thought was logical. Like, why don't we offer the same thing for paternal leave? And there was so much pushback. Again, like you said, we just our system does not support those kinds of things, sadly.
Yes, and my other thing is people say about, with regards to the cost of medical care, well, we're going to be paying so much more in taxes. We're going to be paying da-da-da-da-da. But I actually, just for the heck of it, so in New York State, if you are under 100 employees, we have what are called community rated plans. So basically, the health insurance company takes a look, all of their employers under 100, and they do their rates based on that. So whether I have 2 employees or 90 employees, we are all paying the same for each individual plan. So I looked at the lowest cost plan for one of our local carriers with a $8,000 deductible. For family plan per month, $2,264.13. And that would be cover yourself, and your child. And that's that's even before you touch that deductible. And on average, if employers even cover your insurance, most employers cover 50%. That's about average.
That's crazy.
So I did the math.
Crazy.
That comes out to about $1,100 per month. You do that times 12 just for premium, even if you never use your health insurance, $13,584.78 that are coming out of your pocket.
That tracks exactly with the numbers that I've been tracking for this live today. That tracks exactly with what you're just saying.
And you use that deductible, $22,000. So you're telling me that you're fine paying that out of your paycheck, and that's with employer coverage.
Exactly.
I would rather pay 40% of my income and get health care.
Exactly right. That's exactly. I mean, how many times, I'm sure you've seen this scenario, and I talked about this a little bit last night about how, well, we know that there's also a massive childcare shortage in our country. In my state, we're struggling with it big time. Mm-hmm. There are scenarios where a mom or a dad will go back to work so that they can get and or keep their health care, and the money that they earn goes to pay for childcare. Period.
Exactly.
That's it. Make that make sense. Again, friends, 533 people in here. You do not have to settle for this shit. Do not let your Democratic elected officials talk to you about expanding the ACA. Don't let them get away with it. That's nothing. ACA was great for what it did, but Republicans forced it down our throats. It provided insurance for people who didn't have it, but we don't want expansions to the ACA. Demand universal health care. There's no reason we cannot have it. No reason at all. Anything else on that topic, Devo?
No, not right now. Like I said, I worked before and after the ACE. I have a lot of, so anytime you have any questions or anything, I'm happy to come up and talk about it. I've been doing it for a long time, so it is something that I am very passionate about. So, but I enjoy listening to your show in the morning.
Well, I appreciate you, Devo. Actually, I'm going to reach out to you because I have a question offline that I'll take, and then we can have a conversation about that. So I'll reach out to you. Thank you for being here, friend. I appreciate you very much.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. That's crazy. I mean, just think about, that's the model, right? That's the model. So we are paying out of pocket more than any other nation on earth, and we don't even get access to coverage. So it's not only our contributions to our paycheck, we don't even talk about the deductible that we're hitting. I was telling you about the situation with my daughter, going through that process of itemization, about how our system is by design because everybody has to take a piece. So my daughter was a 2-time cancer survivor. So the first time was not as bad as the second time. All told, for the, we'll call it 2.5 years that we were dealing with her medical procedures, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 surgeries, 11 rounds of radiation, 35 to 40 rounds of chemotherapy, inpatient stay, nursing, changing the sheets. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what the final bill would have been from a retail perspective? Anybody want to take a wild guess as to what that would have cost? Anybody? $1.5 million. $1.5 million. Do you see why I advocate for universal health care? Doctors involved saved her life. I don't regret it. I was grateful at the time that I had decent insurance, but it still cost me nearly $75,000 out of pocket. Went into debt, new credit cards, refinanced the house, all these kinds of things. $1.5 million. And that was after I started asking for itemized lists, saying, I'm not going to pay for that. I don't need somebody coming in and changing the sheets. I don't need it. I'll bring in my own. Why is this still on my bill? Well, it's part of our billing procedure. I don't give a fuck. I'm not paying it. Take it off. That was after. $1.5 million was after that. We don't have to accept it. We don't have to accept it. We're going through the list of people who are in the middle. Remember? Here you are, right? Here's your doctor. In other parts of the world, here you are. Here's your doctor. Here's your care. Government run, organized, collective bargaining to pharmaceutical costs. Boom, done. In the U.S., private insurance companies $75 billion in profit in 2023. Pharmaceutical companies, 5 to 10 times higher in the US than anywhere else in the world. $250 billion plus in profit in 2023. Hospitals and health systems, again, many are nonprofit by name, but operate with large surpluses and high executive pay. Profits often reinvested into marketing, facilities, reserve funds, rather than lowering patient costs. And then consolidation has increased prices and reduced competition. So hospitals and health systems acquiring other hospitals and health systems, they build a bigger brand. They need more money for marketing. They need more executive pay. Do you think they pass that cost on to their cost savings onto their patients? No. That's corporate America. Trickle down, right? But yet we continue to give them government subsidies. We continue to provide them with corporate welfare and handouts. We continue to incentivize them to build bigger buildings, but yet ignore care. I want to separate the machine from the care providers, in particular the nurses, right? I want to be sure that I'm very clear in delineating between the system and the people who are providing care. There are physicians and nurses who saved my daughter's life. Dedicated, compassionate, caring, hardworking, loving individuals who saved my daughter's life. Okay. I want to make sure that people know that. Volunteers, child life specialists who come in and read when mom or dad can get a break. Those people care. They're caught up in the system. I apologize. I'm sorry, it's not easy to talk about, but that's why we're doing it. The system itself, because many of them are also slaves to the system, okay? They're stuck in it too. They want to provide care. They want to treat people. They want to make sure that people, doctors in states now where there's laws against protecting women, providing coverage for their bodies so that they can get access to health care, they don't know what to do. Their hands are tied. So, again, separate care providers and child life support specialists and mental health counselors and whatever that might be from the system. Okay? Thank you. Medical device and equipment companies, high markups on items like pacemakers, imaging machines, surgical tools, new hips, etc. Profitable, extremely profitable due to limited pricing transparency and insurance-driven billing models. Like I said, $1,000 for a new set of sheets. People don't look. We don't advocate. We accept. Here's a question for you guys, 521 of you in here, all right? How many of you have asked for an itemized bill when you've gone to the hospital? Be honest with yourself. I'm not trying to shame you, but be honest. How many times have you asked? Do you know what you're getting charged for? Good. I'm glad to see that. Good. I'm glad. So that may be something that if you take anything from today's live, aside from me blubbering, maybe that will be something that you'll do going forward, right? Maybe that's something that you'll do. Maybe that's something that you'll demand it. You'll ask for it. Why? I don't need a Band-Aid. I don't need that gauze. I'll do it myself. You know, you're going to get some facilities that aren't going to let you do it, but you can ask, right? You can ask. Okay, I think I have a request. Oh, hey, Drew.
Hey, Steve. I hope this morning finds you happy and healthy because the alternative is too damn expensive.
Well said. Hearts in the chat for Drew. Well said, my friend. Well said. Well said.
You know, Steve, it's always such a weird juxtaposition for me with the folks who don't believe in this, what we're talking about this morning. Because in one breath, they're telling us how great this country is, right? And it can be. We can be great. But in the next breath, they're telling us how we can't do this. And it always makes my head hurt, because I'm like, okay, you say we're great, or say we're all these great things, but we can't do the bare minimum for the people of this country. We can't just take care of the people who live in this country. It makes zero sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Again, like we discuss, don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget. Don't tell me the things you care about. Show me what you're going to spend your money on. And our country has decided that we just do not care about our citizenry. And, this is a truly a both sides problem, right? This is truly a system that enables the people who have the most capital, who want to acquire more capital. I mean, we just went through the list. Many hospitals claim to be nonprofit, but they don't invest. They spend their money on marketing, facilities, reserve funds, and they don't lower their patients' cost.
It's really sad. I mean, just dealing with insurance companies and dealing with all this. I'm having an issue this year where I guess I must have messed up on my enrollment and didn't check the right box or didn't do something, but for some reason, and this is after several years of having the same coverage, I'm covered for dental, but my wife and my child somehow did not get included in that. I don't know how. Like I said, I must have clicked something wrong. Who knows? I didn't notice it. Then when we got a bill from the dentist and it was saying how nothing was covered, I was a little concerned. So, and this was, we didn't go right on January 1st. This was a month or two in when we had checkups and everything. When I told them, I said, listen, I don't understand. Oh, you can appeal. We can get that on there. Apparently there's like a 30-day window which you're allowed to switch, but we had no clue. We didn't get a bill until after that. I had to make an appeal, and now they're saying that they still won't cover. So I'm trying to say, because of some box I didn't check on a form, and I'm willing to pay whatever they need me to pay, you're not going to cover my child or my wife for their dental care? Been with the company for 19 years. Doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't understand anybody who's against this.
I agree.
Honestly don't.
I agree. Like we discussed many times, Drew, because I appreciate your big brain as well. There's no economic and or social argument that you can make against it, other than rhetoric. There just is none. The data doesn't lie. The maths doesn't lie. Yes, Obi, I see you. The maths doesn't lie. We spend the most per capita by a long shot, and we have 42nd in outcome of westernized nations, near the bottom of people who are developed nations. It just doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. There is no economic and or social argument against it. None. There
really isn't. And I'll wrap up. I know you got other folks you want to speak to, but several years ago when I was teaching, I had the opportunity to chaperone a trip. It was a choir trip, and did it a couple of times. We went to various locations in Europe. And one year we went to Switzerland. And there was one stop on the tour, and I'm kind of ashamed admitting this, but we were going to sing at a nursing home, a nursing facility, an elderly care facility. And I wasn't looking forward to it. And that's because I've been to care facilities here in America. And I just always found them depressing. And it's wrong for me to think that, but it's the reality of what I had seen throughout my life, right? So we went to this facility in Switzerland to sing. And first of all, gorgeous building, well manicured lawn, everything is clean, immaculate. When they start bringing the residents out, they're not drooling all over soiled, gowns or anything. Everyone is clean. Everyone looks well taken care of. The food they're serving is actual real food. It's in a bright, beautiful environment. There are nurses and staff everywhere. I'm standing next to the tour guide and I say, man, the folks who go here, they must spend a fortune to send their folks here. And he looked at me like I was from a different planet. And he's our local tour guide. He looks at me like I'm from a different planet. He says, no. He said, this is all covered. The country covers all this. You pay into it Correct. Throughout your life. These people have worked their entire lives. And now we are taking care of them. And he looked at me like this is a crazy idea. This is a crazy concept, that we wouldn't take care of our elderly. And it blew me away. And that's I think I was very young at that point, and that was at the point when I started thinking about like, well, why, if we're so amazing, why can't we have this? Why do I have to, my grandmother was lucky. We had some money to send her to a nice facility, but I've seen facilities that are really not very nice. So why should the amount of money that someone has determine their quality of care? It's disgusting.
It shouldn't. I think that's a really great point, Drew. Always good to talk to you, friend. Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks
Always
for
good to
being
talk to you. Thanks for fighting the good fight, buddy.
I got you. See you later. It's a great point, right? I mean, it's a great point. Somebody just talking about this. Imagine they can't imagine if they were in the States with going through what their parenthood went through. So again, I don't want to make this about myself, but when you are in a situation when you are watching your kid, when your child is told they got a 50-50 shot to live, first of all, that'll wake you up. And then at the same time, you are figuring out, I don't know how the fuck I'm going to pay for this. I mean, I gotta beg and plead my boss to get. I happen to be a boss at that time, so thankfully that was advantageous for me. But many people are in the position, you got to beg and plead for time off. You're going to get denied pay. You're going to get doxxed. You're going to get your salary is going to get docked because you went past your CTO or whatever that might be. That's our system. That's our system. Fucking get angry. Get angry. Don't forget, shareholders with United sued United because they didn't adjust their profit forecasts post the unaliving of their CEO. Think about that for a second. Think about it. Shareholders, because they were not going to get the dividends they would normally get because of all the shit that went on with United did not adjust their financial forecast. So their shareholders sued them. And people are dying in our country because they can't go to the doctor. Okay. Medical devices and equipment companies, again, the profit center, and then middlemen, which are PBMs, which are pharmacy benefit managers. They negotiate drug prices, but often pocket the rebates themselves and then artificially inflate the cost. CVS, Caremark, Express Scripts. Those are the people, that covers it, right? Private insurance companies, again, these are the people that are in between you and the care. Private insurance, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals and health systems, medical device and equipment companies, and then the middlemen. Here's the staggering portion. Total U.S. healthcare spending in 2023 was $4.5 trillion, 18% of our GDP. $4.5 trillion. $4.5 trillion. Okay? 17% of our GDP. Estimated waste, fraud, and abuse and administrative overhead is roughly $1 trillion a year. CEO pay on average. Top health insurance executives, their CEO pay is between $25 and $150 million annually. 600,000 household medical bankruptcies in 2023. Anybody want to hear those numbers again? Kind of get the point? $4.5 trillion spent by U.S. consumers on healthcare in 2023. $1 trillion in profit for that industry. 17.3% contribution to our overall GDP. Average pay, so the range is between 20 million and 150 million. So we'll call the average $75 million on average is the annual pay, dividends, stock buybacks, etc., for CEOs in healthcare, and 600,000 medical bankruptcies, household medical bankruptcies in the United States in 2023. What else is there to say? Yeah, exactly. That's a good point, Melissa. Out of pocket. What about out of network, right? Part of the lie that you get told is that universal health care would limit innovation. It's a lie, meaning that these pharmaceutical companies are the ones that are innovating. Is Moderna a U.S. company? Nope. Pfizer? Nope. Okay. U.S. healthcare system, this is the summary. I'm going to get into the Bernie's plan in just a minute. U.S. healthcare system is enormously profitable. Yeah, understatement. Profits often come at the expense of affordability, access, and equity. Unlike other wealthy nations with universal systems, the U.S. model prioritizes market-based competition, but does it really? Which incentivizes revenue generation over population health outcomes. Profit center, $4.5 trillion, $1 trillion in profit, 18% of our GDP is in healthcare. Number one in cost, 42nd in outcome. 70s, our life expectancy has gone down, and we have the highest maternal mortality, infant mortality rate of any developed nation, 5.4 per thousand. Preventable, because yet we don't care about kids. Okay. All right. Let's get into Bernie's. Everybody, let's take this opportunity. If you guys could keep liking and sharing, just as a reminder that we are trying to do a $1 per guest donation for our friend Brett and Nikki Cross. You'll find the link tree in my bio. It's a link to their GoFundMe. It is, we're trying to get them out of Uvalde. So the goal is there. I think they're trying to raise between $1,500 and $2,000 or whatever you can contribute today. So if each of the 650 people in here could donate $1, then we could get them halfway there. You want to support me? You can do that through a couple of different ways. You can subscribe. We are pushing towards our next subscriber goal, which will be another 15 or so subscribers. If we can hit that goal, we'll do another sub-only event next week. Pay apps are above my head. Don't forget about gifting. If you haven't joined our team, please do so. Let me just check over here real quick on something. Stand by. Thank you, Eve. I'll make sure Brett gets that. Thank you, Christina. I appreciate you. Thank you, Jennifer, for your $10. I really appreciate you. You guys are sweet. You guys are exceptional humans. Okay. So Bernie's Medicare for All plan, right? So this is what he's been talking about. And as somebody who's worked on Bernie Sanders campaigns going back to the 80s, yes, I'm that old, when he was the mayor, Bernard Sanders, mayor of Burlington, Vermont. I like Ben and Jerry's, wool mittens, and I wear my galoshes when it rains. Anyway, he's been talking about Medicare for All going back to the 80s, and his model has never really changed. How it gets paid for, what it's intended to cover, he's been pretty consistent because, again, Bernie is probably the most consistent politician you'll ever see. I mean, seriously, he's been saying the same things the same way. He's just gotten a little older. In Bernie's model, these are the core features of the plan. Universal coverage. All U.S. residents automatically enrolled, no premiums, no deductibles, or copays for most services. Single payer, federal government becomes a sole insurer paying all medical bills through a national plan. Again, here you are. Here's your doctor, the government. Now, people are going to say, oh, we can't trust the government. Okay, you can't trust the government to provide health care, but you trust the for-profit healthcare industry that's generating $1 trillion in profit? What? Okay. Comprehensive benefits. Covers hospital visits, doctor visits, mental health, dental, vision, ambulatory, long-term care, prescription drugs, and reproductive health. Thank you, Scotty. Appreciate you. Scotty, thanks for the gifted subs, man. Appreciate you very much. Freedom of choice. Patients can go to any doctor or hospital, no network or pre-approvals. And elimination of private insurance. Private plans would be phased out for basic coverage, though allowed for non-covered elective procedures. So if there are specialties, like if you're in a position to, whatever that might be, it could be cosmetic, it could be anything that may not be covered. Again, an elective, not emergent, an elective. I think private insurance would be an option. If you can afford it, knock yourself out. Again, this is the summary. All U.S. residents, and Be objective, okay? Be objective. And any MAGAs out there, I know you guys show up because you love me. Kiss, kiss, hug, hug. I want you to be objective, and I want you to ask yourself if you want this system. All U.S. residents automatically enrolled, no premiums, no deductibles, or co-pays for most services. Federal government becomes the sole insurer, paying all medical bills through a national plan. Covers hospital visits, doctor visits, ambulatory, mental health, dental, vision, long-term care, prescription drugs, and reproductive health care. Patients can go to any doctor or any hospital, no networks or pre-approvals. Private plans would be phased out for basic coverage, though allowed for non-covered elective procedures. Why would you not want that? Right? Like, how could you not vote against it? Okay, this is how it's funded. Sanders proposes a very progressive tax mechanism to fund Medicare for all, including progressive income based on households. Your taxes would go up. On estimate, they say between 14 and 20%, depending on the math, right? Again, as Devo broke down earlier, we are paying roughly $15,000 now per American citizen. Even if our taxes went up 50% in some cases, we would still pay half that, whatever that would look like. It's fucking crazy. Again, no economic argument or social argument against. Higher taxes on wealthy and corporations, closing tax loopholes, and repealing tax cuts like going after capital gains, savings from reduced administrative costs, lower drug prices, and negotiated medical service rates specifically. Estimates suggest the plan would cost between $20 to $30 trillion over 10 years, but overall national healthcare spending would drop significantly due to efficiencies and cost controls. We're spending $4 to $5 trillion a year now. Okay, so 4 to 5, say 4.5. So that would be 4.5. That'd be $45 trillion over the next 10 years compared to $20 trillion with Medicare for all. Again, it's math, right? So half. We're doing it now. So your taxes go up. You'll pay no deductibles, no premiums, no co-pays, no out-of-pocket cost. You're healthier. You don't carry the stress of having to go to the doctor, or you're just choosing not to go to the doctor at all and you die alone. U.S. pays the most for health care, but leaves between 25 and 41 million people uninsured. Tens of millions more are underinsured or face medical bankruptcy, and then private insurance private insurance benefits. No medical bills or surprise charges, guaranteed access to care, huge administration savings because your billing costs are slashed or just eliminated altogether, negotiated drug prices on the collective bargain, and then greater health equity, particularly for marginalized communities. Okay? These are some of the challenges and criticisms. Cost. Critics will say it's unaffordable. Okay, we just did the math, right? We literally just went through the math. I mean, it's not unaffordable. We save money. Not only do we save money, we become more productive. We live longer. Not as many of our kids die unnecessarily. Right? Disruption. And by the way, excuse me, most of the criticism comes from where? Would you like to guess? Where do you think most of the criticism comes from? Yeah, you guessed it. The healthcare industry. They're the ones that are criticizing it. They're the ones that are saying, it costs too much. Meanwhile, listen, it costs too much. I got to run to a meeting on my new G70 jet to my house in Aspen, but what you guys want to do costs too much. I'm sorry, I got to figure out a way to spend my $65 million bonus that I got because I cut 30% of our people off from claims, but it costs too much. That's where the criticism comes from. The healthcare industries, the lobbyists, elected officials in Washington who are getting paid by these same companies. That's where the criticism comes from. It doesn't come from anybody who's rational. And then that gets perpetuated, gets sold to Fox News, gets marketed that way. They work with their lobbyists to message it. And then it goes into the minds of the easily manipulable, whatever, influenced to be convinced that it costs too much. Okay. Provider pushback. Shocker. Some doctors or hospitals fear reduced reimbursement rates. Okay. And then political feasibility. Requires massive legislative overhaul, which I agree, Strong opposition from the industry and, wait for it, conservatives. Conservatives are always the fucking problem. Yeah. Shocker. Bernie's plan, okay? Medicare for All plan, once again, transformative proposal. It would completely change our system. There's no doubt about it. It would be a serious upheaval. It would be bumpy. There's no doubt about it. Again, friends, there is no economic or social argument against it. We save money as a society. We all save money. Trillions of dollars over 10 years. We all save money. We are healthier. We are happier. Happy is perspective, I suppose. I used to tell my kids, hey, have a great day. Now I just say, have a day. I don't want to put the pressure on them. We already know the stigma, especially for men, about access to mental health care. We know that people oftentimes their employer provided health insurance or what they have doesn't cover mental health, dental, vision, things like that. Those things aren't covered. Imagine if you were, again, listen, if you want to change jobs, become a therapist. Just become a therapist, because our friend Amy Don talks about it, and she's got a waiting list. So you want to guarantee a career change? And actually, I've been contemplating doing something like that, but that's a different conversation. Again, we have the ability to take better care of ourselves. We can fill our own cups. Transformative proposal. Publicly funded universal healthcare system in the U.S. modeled after successful systems abroad. It promises comprehensive care for everyone. Faces economic, political, and institutional hurdles. Why? Economic hurdles, because the for-profit industry would no longer exist. Political hurdles, because though that for-profit industry is getting people elected, and institutional hurdles. The established for-profit industry would no longer exist. So they're going to hold on to that power. It's not going to impact your care. It's not going to de-incentivize doctors. It's not. It's just not. Okay, so from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and or CMS, and this pretty much tracks with what Devo told us earlier, average American now spends $14,570 per year. We're close. I think my number might be a little bit higher, but we'll call it even. We'll say $14,000. Average American. The average American spends $14,000 per year on healthcare, up from $11,500 in 2019. So it's gone up $4,000 in 5 years, and it's just going to continue to rise. Per person spending. Average person spends around between out-of-pocket costs and deductibles. This is from Healthy Systems. Again, this is reported on by the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. $1,514 per person for out-of-pocket costs. And then private insurance premiums, which employer pays. Employers and employees pay together roughly $4,000 per person. Okay? Medicare for All, Bernie's program, let's go through the breakdown. U.S. spends nearly double what other countries do on a universal healthcare system, where they average half, $7,300 per person compared to what we were spending in the U.S., which was $14,000. As a share of the GDP, GDP, I think I got that pretty close, right? I think I was pretty close enough for our conversation. As a share of GDP, U.S. healthcare is approximately 17.5%, compared to 10% around the rest of the world. Why the costs are so high? We know. Administrative costs, billing complexity and overhead, roughly why would I be restricted for that? For what? Oh my God. All right, guys, tap away. Make sure we can keep the live. Let's make sure we can keep the live up. Tap, please. Gift, do the things. Join our team, activity in the live, comment. I'm not going to battle you. I don't want to battle. Okay. Costs are so high because of administrative costs primarily. $350 billion per year in administrative costs. High drug prices. U.S. retail drug spending is over, wait for it, $700 billion per year. I used to do this comedy bit. And I used to talk about the names for the, for a lot of the pharmaceuticals. See if I can remember the joke. You get lorazepam for stress. You get Claritin for allergies. You get Vagisil for vague silliness. But I'm here all week. Anyway, there's massive amounts of money that is spent by pharmaceutical companies just on marketing and advertising, right? Just on marketing and advertising to the tune of $750 billion a year. It's $1,126 per person. And then providers and staff salaries. Doctors and nurses are paid significantly more than in peer nations. And that doesn't need to change. It doesn't need to change. What the issue is, though, is the question as to whether or not doctors, again, I'm not going to question the care of physicians or nurses or people who provide healthcare, but they're influenced by a lot of people in these industries, right? Again, total cost spending per person in the U.S., we're going to say $14,000, an additional $1,500 out of pocket, insurance premiums per person, approximately $4,000, 17.5% of GDP, and half that exists in the rest of the world. Half. And that's with an increase in taxes. Your taxes going up, and you still save money. Bottom line, typical American spends $14,500 annually on healthcare, of which roughly $4,000 covers insurance and another $1.5K out of pocket. Everything else is just fluff. Despite higher investment, U.S. does not achieve better outcomes compared to countries that spend half as much. The states that spend the most in healthcare oftentimes has to do with the commitment they make to their citizenry. California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, populations, right? They've got more people, therefore they're going to spend more on per capita. All right. The Sanders proposal, this is how it's paid for. A 4% income-based premium paid by households, 4% lift. Example, a typical family of four earning $50,000 per year would pay $844 per year compared to $5,277 now in private health insurance premiums, a $4,400 annual savings. This is from Sanders' website. A family of four, $50,000 a year, would pay $844 a year for coverage for universal health care compared to $5,277 now. Out-of-pocket expenses under Sanders' plan, families would pay little to nothing in deductions, in deductibles or copays for covered services. Prescription drugs, biological copays would be capped at $200 per person per year. Again, what is the argument against? CBO estimates Medicare for all could save, you ready for this? $750 billion annually by reducing administrative overhead and drug costs. $750 billion in savings annually. You want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse? There's an industry for you. There's an industry for you. Other studies, RAND, Physicians for a National Health Program, estimate similar savings in the hundreds of billions of dollars per year. Average American, what most Americans would expect to pay under Bernie's plan, Medicare for all. Small annual tax premium, $844 for a family of four. Minimal out-of-pocket costs, minimal to no out-of-pocket costs. The only exception being copays, which would be capped at $200 per person annually. And then in return, no deductibles, premiums, billing hassles, etc. Projections state a typical family would save roughly $4,400 per year. In capitalism, it requires the citizenry to spend money, right? So, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind having an additional $4,400 in my pocket. Would you? Knowing that at the same time, just the peace of mind, knowing that you don't have to stress out about going to the doctor because you're not sure if you can afford it. It's crazy to think about. This is an example of how, it's almost $20,000 in 4 years, right? Again, these are the kinds of things. So Bernie has been called everything from a socialist, communist, you name it, because he's been talking about a feasible economic solution that would guarantee access to health care for every citizen in our country. Right? Yeah, it's money that we're putting into economy. Guess what? Just like forgiving student loan debt. Same thing. I don't like capitalism. I think we're seeing the end of it, quite frankly, but we still live in it now, right? We still live in it. So for capitalism to exist, why not give people more capital to spend? Can you imagine? Here's another scenario for you, because part of this, again, in the work that I used to do, and actually I still do somewhat. I actually just recently did a poll for a customer of mine, worked through Gallup. They talk about employee satisfaction surveys, right? And one of the main reasons that people stay in their dead-end jobs is because they don't want to lose health insurance. So people say, well, I'll just get a different job. I can't. I can't get a different job because I've got health insurance. Small businesses that can't afford their employees. So how long ago was that? Like 15 years ago, I also had a small business, and I had 5 employees, and I couldn't afford insurance for them, and it bothered the shit out of me, and I just couldn't do it. I could not provide insurance for my employees, and I wanted to, just couldn't do it, couldn't afford it. You wouldn't have to worry about that. You could hire staff if you needed to. Your benefits could be something else. You wouldn't have to worry about that additional expense. That is something that small business owners just can't afford in our system, right? Exactly. A lot of your other employees don't offer health insurance. I get that. Could you just imagine, like, you wouldn't have to worry about the stress of losing your job, and then Cobra is that supplemental insurance that you get for, I think it's up to 18 months, which is twice as much money out of pocket. This is utopia for some people, but why? It doesn't have to be. Hey,
Hello,
Jeanette, how are you, friend? How's it going?
I'm doing well. I hope Frodo lets me have this conversation. I have a
I'm sure he
possible
will.
solution
Okay,
to
let's hear it.
people. Because right now, look at what Doge is doing. They're dismantling systems. And I agree, those systems needed an overhaul, but they didn't need to be dismantled before something else was implemented, right? Because then you've got a
Right.
whole lot of people screwed. But one of my last employers, the one that I was with the longest, they didn't offer health insurance. But what they did do is they hired a doctor. He would come in 3 days a week, and they withheld, I think it was $16 per month per employee, and they gave that to the doctor. And he treated us at no additional cost. And if
It's a great
people
idea.
could find a doctor in their community who would be willing to do that, that's an alternative.
Yeah, those are great out-of-the-box solutions. But you're right. You got to have a care provider willing to do it. You got to have a progressive thinking business leader who's willing to do it, right?
Yeah. And this guy, he was actually rated the #1 family practitioner in the city of my office in 2015. So he was a reputable doctor. He wasn't some quack, and he preferred to treat patients that didn't have insurance because he saw the racket. He saw that it was all a trap. I mean, basically, we pay so many thousands into premiums, and then we have to meet a deductible before they cover anything. But if we don't have any claims, we don't get that money back. We basically just put money in their pocket. These billionaires who don't need it. They don't, and people are dying.
I know.
Sorry.
I know you're right. I mean, it's gonna require some creative solutions, and I think that was an interesting pitch, Sheila. I appreciate that idea. We got to be thinking outside the box, so it's always good to talk to you. Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you, Frodo, for checking in. We love you too, Frodo. I'll talk to you later, friend. All right, see you later. All right, bye. Thank you, Eve, for jumping in real quick. I just got to take a quick little break. I'll be right back.
You know, I'm always happy to come up here and holler at the chat. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be back and reminding you, you have some work to do. We should be tapping that screen. We are up to almost 240K likes. Let's see if we can get Steve up to 300K. Make sure you're clicking that follow or heart me up at the top of the screen next to Fax's name. Join the team for the cost of a penny. Remember, you can do this every day. It helps to keep our algorithm fresh, keeps us on the FYP. But the main thing that we ask, of course, is that you interact in those comments. We need to be tapping that screen. Tap your little hearts out. It's always free to tap and share out the live. If you don't have any friends, you know that you can click the copy link. It works the same as a share. No one will be the wiser. And when you have a chance, head over to YouTube, subscribe to FactsStillMatter there, like a video, help to boost his following there on YouTube as well as here on TikTok. We love y'all for all of your support. And remember, we are going to be doing another merch raffle next week. So make sure that you have an active subscription either here on TikTok or on FactsStillMatter.site.
You're awesome. Thank you for doing that for me. I appreciate you very much.
Love you, my friend.
Love you too. See you later. Bye. Yeah. I'm good. Thank you. That's right. We're still pushing towards. We need another 16 subscribers to hit our next marker, so that we can do our another subscriber raffle next week. So yes. So thank you. Who requested? I see Olive. These are things that are attainable, friends. It takes courage. It takes guts. It takes electing progressives. It takes getting rid of conservatives. It takes having courage to elect officials and demand that they vote to overturn Citizens United. We should all be able to agree that there is way too much money influencing politics. People's lives are impacted because of it, and I don't think we think about that enough. You want to be. So here's an example, and then I'll bring Olive up. Here's a perfect example. We always our friends on the right like to say, you know, American excellence or America first or the greatest country on earth. I would say, if you truly believe that, then let's have the best healthcare system in the world. That is the most affordable, that is the best serving, that is the most efficient. Let's have the best public education system in the world that provides every single resource, that we have the best schools, that every school in rural communities and every school in urban communities has the best access to things, the best facilities, the best theater programs, the best libraries. If you want that, we can do it. It just takes guts. Hi, Olive.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I am good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm here. You know, I love talking about healthcare specific. You know, I've been a huge advocate since I've been on this app talking about women's reproductive assistance, being someone who has polycystic ovarian syndrome and going through a try to conceive journey as young as I did and as long as I did. And I feel like whenever we have the conversation with the right about pro-life, they truly don't believe that healthcare is a human right. I mean, the ideology of universal healthcare, we can look to the basics of, you know, what our military uses and what our vets use, you know, the format that they do. I feel like that is very much a easy to accomplish type of deal. And yet, you know,
Medicare. Medicare too. There's a model. It works.
It's wild how they just get so negative about everything and anything that would benefit not only just them, like primarily when we're talking about these things, it's red states that need it more than blue states.
Absolutely.
But you know, they don't care. They're content with my taxes and state rights and all that jazz, I guess.
You're right. I mean, again, not to kind of go back over what we went through, but there's no social and or economic argument against it. There just is none. It's just the fear mongering. You know, this is again propaganda intended to divide. Because let's be real. Let's call it what it is. universal health care to the mind of a conservative means that brown people get it too.
Yep, I mean,
And I'm
affirmative action.
going to call it like I see it. That's just it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's no different with affirmative action and what they thought it was going to harm. In reality, it harmed people who look like me. So,
Correct.
Keep doing what you do. I love you, Steve. You can drop me down.
I love you too, Fred. I appreciate you. Thanks a lot. And just a quick reminder, friends, I think Eve might have mentioned this, but we are helping our friends Brett and Nikki Cross get the hell out of Uvalde. So there's a GoFundMe link. It's the first link. It's in the link tree that's in my bio. We're asking folks to donate $1. Everybody could donate $1 today. That would be great, and we would help them move. They want to come to Vermont, I'll find space for you. Come on up here. I'll keep you safe. There's lots of great jobs, lots of great fishing. Brett and I can go fish. I told you my fishing disaster story yesterday, but anyway, so exciting. Hi, Joby. How are you? Thanks for being a subscriber. What's on your mind today?
Yeah.
Okay. That was interesting. All right. So I could talk about this all day. We obviously have a lot of news to continue to cover. We know that there's going to be a lot of churning and burning and voting within the GOP, the Senate and the GOP, the bill to try to get the big, bold, beautiful piece of fucking shit across the finish line. I have a little bit of sound that I want to play, and we'll go back to this conversation and we'll finish it out at the end of the show. But there's just a few things that I think that we kind of need to address because, of course, we've seen a little bit of shifting in policy. But first, I want to remind you, so there was a meeting with Republican leadership yesterday morning while citizens were being beaten, while journalists were being hit with rubber bullets, while flashbangs and tear gas were being used by law enforcement against the American citizenry. And then you have a member of Republican leadership. Her name, I want to make sure I get it straight. Her name is Lisa McClain. Lisa McClain represents Michigan. Okay. She is she's the chair of the House Republican Congress. I'm sorry. She's the chair of the House Republican Conference. So there's a meeting yesterday, a leadership meeting gathered yesterday. And the meeting starts off this way. Okay, let me refresh. I'm going to get the beginning of the meeting. The meeting starts off this way. Again, while there's civil unrest in Los Angeles, while people's rights are being violated, while kids are being ripped from their parents' arms, while journalists are being assaulted, while people are being, rounded up by the own words of Tom Homan, we're just rounding up everybody, whether they're criminals or not. While ICE is invading people's rights in neighborhoods throughout Los Angeles, this is what Republicans were doing.
Mr. Smith.
Take your game to work.
Laughing. They're all laughing.
Oh, we're in a good mood this morning.
Oh.
So good morning, everyone. Let me just start with the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor of California. Actually messed around and found out.
Oh. Wow. Let's listen to that again. Again, Lisa McClain, who's speaking. She's up in front with other members of the Republican leadership, Mike Johnson, Steve Scalise. That is the leadership of the House Republican Conference, the leadership team of the House Republican Conference, while the National Guard has been deployed, while the U.S. Marine Corps has been deployed and mobilized, and while law enforcement officials are beating up citizens in in L.A., flashbangs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the response from the pro-life Christian party in America.
Mr. Smith.
Take your game to work.
Oh, we're in a good mood this morning. So good morning, everyone. Let me just start with the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor of California. Actually messed around and found out.
The cruelty's the point, right? The mayor of Los Angeles, the governor of California messed around and found out. Found out what? That you and your party hate brown people? You racist fucking bigot, you? Lisa McClain That's spelled MC, capital C, LAIN, house.gov. Lisa McLean, let me see if I'm going to give you the telephone number, and you guys can make a phone call. Let's see, is there a number posted? Let's go to contact. Not there. Let's see if I can find her actual congressional website. Here you go. Lisa McLean, Congresswoman. Contact. Oh, she changed her website. Telephone number's not posted there. I'm continuing to look. I want to give you a direct line to see if she's got a campaign website and or here's congress.gov. This is her vote. Here you go. Her address. Okay, write this down. It's 562 Cannon House Office Building, 202-225-2106. Again, 202-225-2106. Lisa McLean. She represents Michigan's 9th District, and she served since 2023. Telephone number again, 202-225-2106. When you call her, just ask, say, Lisa, you represent the citizens of Northern Michigan. Do you think that every citizen in your district that you represent would be happy that you were laughing while people's rights are being violated? And then before she hangs up on you, just call her a fucking Nazi. See how that goes. 202-225-2106. Nice. So, I want to kind of touch on this because I think this is a bit interesting. I want to make sure I have the sound queued up because I think it's important that we build the story here for you. Let me see if I've got it. Okay. I want people to, I want to play this because we can't let history just be brushed under the street. So I would like people to remember going back to the 2024 election when we had entitled, pathetic, non-voter leftist, whiny, complaining leftists who chose not to vote for the most qualified person to ever run for the presidency, which was Kamala Harris, because they claimed they did not like her approach to the Israel-Palestine situation. Okay? So you chose not to vote. And then we have the president claiming what he claimed, buddying up to Bibi Netanyahu, right? Buddying up to that war criminal, Bibi Netanyahu. And then there was all that rhetoric regarding how we would address Palestine. Remember this sound?
President, how do you know that the Palestinians don't want to leave their land? Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave their land.
We're moving them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have doctors and medical and all of those things. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah, any questions?
You said before that the U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
And Mr. President, take it under what?
It's like, and call it George. We're going to caress it and love it and call it George. Remember that, okay? Because there's new reporting that Mike Huckabee has suggested any future Palestinian state should be carved out of, quote, a Muslim country. U.S. Ambassador to Israel says U.S. no longer pursuing goal of independent Palestinian state. U.S. Ambassador to Israel has said that the U.S. is no longer pursuing the goal of an independent Palestinian state, marking what an analyst described as the most explicit abandonment yet of a cornerstone of U.S. Middle East diplomacy. Asked during an interview with Bloomberg News if a Palestinian state remains a goal of U.S. policy, he replied, I don't think so. Former Arkansas governor chosen by Trump as his envoy to Israel went further by suggesting that any future Palestinian entity could be carved out of a, quote, Muslim country rather than requiring Israel to cede any territory. Unless there are significant things that happen that change the culture, there's no room for it. Huckabee said, those probably won't happen in our lifetime, he told the news agency. In a separate interview with BBC, Huckabee said, quote, Muslim countries have 644 times the amount of land that are controlled by Israel. So maybe if there is such a desire for the Palestinian state, there would be someone who would say, we'd like to host it. When pressed on Palestinian aspirations in the West Bank, where 3 million Palestinians live under Israeli occupation, Huckabee employed Israeli government terminology asking, does it have to be in Judea and Samaria? Trump in his first term was relatively tepid in his approach to a two-state solution, a longtime pillar of U.S. Middle East policy, and he has given very little sign of where he stands on the issue in his second term. Two-state solution refers to a proposed resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This has been a core U.S. Middle Eastern policy conversation for decades, in which an independent state of Palestine would be established alongside the state of Israel, with both nations existing peacefully and securely within internationally recognized borders. The core concept: Israel would continue to exist as a Jewish majority democratic state. Palestine would become an independent sovereign nation, likely in either the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, with East Jerusalem as its capital. Okay? That's been a core tenet of U.S. foreign policy to that particular region. All right? So now, not only, I played that sound from Trump earlier saying, we'll just buy it, we'll just take it, we'll turn it into the Middle Eastern Riviera. All right? Here's some of the issues that need to be resolved. Borders. Based largely on the pre-1967 boundaries before Israel occupied the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza, adjustments may involve land swaps. Settlements. Israeli settlements in the West Bank are seen as illegal under international law. Many would need to be removed or integrated. Jerusalem, claimed by both Israelis and Palestinians as their capital, a major sticking point. Right of return. Palestinians seek the right for refugees and descendants to return to homes lost in 1948, 1967, and now in 2023, 2024. Israel opposes large-scale return and security. Both sides seek guarantees. Israel wants to prevent terrorism. Palestinians want protection from occupation and military control. Look, Bibi Netanyahu is a war criminal. Bibi Netanyahu is a war criminal. Bibi Netanyahu is a war criminal. I think I've made it clear how I feel about that. Donald Trump is a buddy of Bibi. He does not care about ethnic cleansing and G-side. He sees it as a development opportunity. He's talked about it. And now we've got Mike Huckabee basically saying, yeah, we're done with the whole two-state solution argument. That's not going to happen. And the expectation is that some other Muslim country will just assume the millions of people that have been displaced by the unlawful and illegal invasion by the war criminal, Bibi Netanyahu. But that's nice. Yeah. Right? Super. It's a fucking joke, man. I hate these people. I can't stand them. I hate them. I cannot stand them. And I don't carry around a lot of hate in me. I can't stand these people. They treat human beings like they're pawns. They treat human beings like they're property. They treat human beings like they're just disposable. It just burns me to my core. A lot of the mental health that I carry around, exactly, you're right, Heather. A lot of this mental health that I carry around is because I just feel this kind of shit deep. I really feel it. As I've gotten older, I've gotten much more empathetic. I've always been an empath, but I've just gotten much more empathetic to people's suffering. It just kills me. I literally see people, and you look at the lives, you look at the innocent people, you hear the sound of children screaming, and it just burns. And it's so unnecessary. It just is, we're just pawns in this game at the hands of our government. Conservatives are the problem. They are the problem. There is no doubt about it. They are the problem. They have been the problem for centuries. They've always been the problem. They will always be the problem because they will hide behind their nonsense of morality. It's about race. You're right. It's about racism. It's about bigotry. It's about isms in general. It's about every phobia. They are I said this the other day, MAGA men in particular, are the most treasonous, traitorous, pathetic, ignorant, bigoted, misogynistic, paranoid, scared, soft, weak people to ever walk the fucking earth. Not just here, but everywhere. Pathetic. Because you hide behind your faith. You hide behind your morality. You hide behind your belief in the nuclear family. You're cowards. You're pathetic. You cheer on suffering. You sit there in your little spaces, polishing your truck nuts, as celebrating people suffering. You don't give a shit. People on the left, progressives, liberals, people who are open-minded, we care more about your children's future than you do. We care more about your community. We care more about your property. We care more about your home. We care more about that you're protected from disease. We care more about that you're protected from, at least attempt to protect from natural disasters. We will be there to lend a hand, no matter what. You don't give a fuck. You just don't fucking care. How embarrassing. Okay. I played that. I don't need to play that now. We talked about that. Let me see. Okay. To that point, the lies that were told during the Biden administration's response to hurricanes, we knew that they were lies. Here we are now, the federal government denying funding. I got a restriction for what? Because I said something uncomfortable? Okay, whatever. Everybody tap like crazy. You guys know the drill. I'm probably going to get banned today, but just everybody, if you got a gift in your pocket, whether it be a rose, a coin, a heart, whatever, just gift. Because the conservative ecosphere doesn't like it when I talk about the truth. Fuck them. Don't care. Okay. So as I was discussing, a lot of the lies that were told during the Biden administration about FEMA's response to hurricanes and natural disasters is coming home to roost. Now, I want you to listen to what the president has to say here, because this is interesting. This is just interesting, and I'm just wondering if this tracks in the mind of MAGA. Here you go.
Message to the governors about how much more in expense it's going to fall to states.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be so much to states. We're going to give out less money. We're going to give it out directly.
We're going to give out less money as we approach hurricane season. Okay.
From the president's office, we'll have somebody here. Could be Homeland Security, but we're going to give it out through a method where it's given out. As an example, I just gave out $71 million to a certain state. They were looking to do about 120. They were very happy with the 71 million.
They were. Okay, so in the Oval Office, he spoke about his plans to dismantle FEMA and personally control how much money states get. He says the plan is to give less money for disaster relief. Instead, he thinks governors should be responsible for recovery. So no federal support for disasters. He's going to decide who gets the money. During the election, Trump often spoke about Biden's handling of disaster relief, saying he was too slow to help states after natural disasters. Since he's been in office, Trump has denied major relief to states like Arkansas and North Carolina and appointed officials who say they didn't even know there was such a thing as a hurricane season. That's right. The director of FEMA doesn't know that there's a hurricane season. And then, of course, they're going to say he was joking. So that means that blue states, ironically enough, though, Arkansas and North Carolina denied funding. Exactly. What's the point of being a country? So if you live in Florida, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Actually, my friends that are there, I'm sorry for you, but you as a state, you voted for this shit. So good luck. So when you ask the federal government, thank you. When you ask the feds for support because your house was decimated by a hurricane, then you're going to get denied. So this is the divided states of America. This is red versus blue. So the money, right? Keep in mind, as we just went through this exercise before, right? Blue states are donor states. Blue states give more to the federal government than they get back. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, California, the blue states, right? Give get 82. They get 82% on. I'm sorry, 82 cents on the dollar on average back for every dollar that they spend. Where states that, by the way, states are in the Gulf, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, states like that are in the eye of the hurricanes that come through the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico has hurricanes too. Did you guys know that the Gulf of Mexico churns up hurricanes because the waters in the Gulf of Mexico are warm and the volatility in that particular area, you know, that body of water, the Gulf of Mexico, churns up hurricanes in those areas, in those Gulf states that border the Gulf of Mexico. They would then have to ask and beg for permission to get more federal funding, because the president now apparently controls the checkbook. He doesn't. Nice though, right? Nice. I'm so glad that he's looking out for the citizens of America as long as they support everything that he says all the time. Okay, so then, as we know, everybody, please keep tapping. We got 45 minutes to go. Thank you for helping us get to 600 people. Really, really appreciate that. The Gulf of Mexico is beautiful. I've fished along the in the RGV, the Rio Grande Valley, which goes along the Gulf of Mexico. It's a beautiful body of water. I love it down there. Some of the best fishing. I went bone fishing on a flat bottom boat in the waters, in the boundary waters of the Gulf of Mexico. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Standing on a flat bottom boat, bright sun, white sand, and bonefish. Like you could see them. They were like shimmering in the water. And the guy who took me through the Gulf of Mexico for this fishing trip said you could literally pick out the fish that you want. And we were fly fishing. So you're like targeting your fish and you drop the fly right in front of them. Surface catches, like if you ever fly fish, you watch a surface bite. It's pretty exciting. Anyway, the Gulf of Mexico is a beautiful area, part of the world. I would encourage you guys to visit the Gulf of Mexico because it's glorious. So good luck, people who live along the Gulf of Mexico. Good luck with that because it could be difficult. Hurricane season in the Gulf of Mexico this year could be very difficult. We know that there is an event this weekend in D.C. It is the President's Parade for himself. I don't even like talking about my birthday. Like, I don't even want people to know when it is. And he wants to plan a parade. I don't know why. Oh, I know, because he's an egotistical fucking malignant narcissist who doesn't give a fuck about anybody but himself. So we've spent, I think the estimates are $150 million so far on his little show of force in LA, roughly speaking, right? I don't know if anybody was stationed at the Gulf of Mexico that had to go to California, but they may have. Who knows? Anywho, roughly $150 million, and estimates are around $50 to $60 to $70 million for this parade in D.C. this weekend. Well, he was asked this question as part of this weird-ass press briefing in the Oval Office over the past couple of days about this event. Of course, he's excited. You know, it's like the circle jerk as the felons stand around the colonel and then celebrate him, and he takes a bath, and I won't go there. We'll save that conversation for Facts After Dark. Get that image out of your head. My apologies. This is what he had to say when asked questions about this event coming up this weekend, which is Saturday, which coincides with the No Kings protest nationwide. Go for it.
Big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protest that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force. Thank you very much, everybody. Celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protest that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force.
So anybody, so just friends, just as a reminder, if you choose to go to DC or anywhere and you are out exercising your constitutional right, which is to peacefully protest, petition the government for grievances, exercising your constitutional right to do so, you're going to be met by big force, heavy force, whatever the fuck that is. as a reminder from our conversation we had with Dr. Jace earlier, be prepared. Okay? Be prepared. This is a cautionary tale. I don't know yet if Dr. Jace was able to connect with our mods, but we're going to create like a virtual go bag, whatever that might look like, or just some instructions to attend rallies. A lot of great advice about earplugs, noise canceling earplugs, glasses, not headphones, but ear canceling. I like the cone idea. If somebody throws a smoke bomb your way, you just cover it with a cone and put your hand on the top, and then it extinguishes itself. Water, buddy system, everybody has a separate role, all that kind of stuff. I like that. So just be prepared. But again, the threat from the White House, the Oval Office, is if you want to go out and express your and share and promote your constitutional rights to protest, you will be met with heavy force. Indiscriminate, heavy force. Doesn't matter. Again, when we say history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, this is what we're talking about. Where is the line? So that's fear, right? That's fear. Don't come. If you protest, you're going to be met with heavy force. Right? Heavy force. Okay. Good to know. Appreciate that. Thanks for sharing this, friend. Appreciate you. Okay. I just want to kind of close the loop on the rhetoric connected to LA and just remind people. I did watch Gavin Newsom's little statement last night. It was weird. It got off to a rough start because there was no sound. That kind of had to restart it. I've got a little bit of that sound that I'll play in response to it, but do I have that limit? Which one should I play first? Should I play this one first? Yeah, I'm going to play this one. I'm going to play this one first. So this was Gavin Newsom. I've made it very clear that I'm not the biggest Gavin Newsom fan in the world. I don't like the podcast reach out to people like Charlie Kirk. I don't think that was necessary. This is a moment for him. Let's see how he responds. He likes the spotlight. He's a smooth talker. He's a good-looking guy. He's very articulate. I just think he's too moderate for me. I just want progressives. I just want progressives. I don't like some of the things he's done regarding immigration. I don't like some of the things he's done with LGBTQIA rights in his state. I'm just not a huge fan. Okay. I like how he's handling this because these are the kind of responses that we want to see. So this was part of his statement last night.
Thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force.
That's right.
He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines.
Yep.
These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces. Not in LA, not in California, not anywhere. We're seeing unmarked cars in school parking lots. Kids afraid of attending their own graduation. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses.
Students.
That's just weakness masquerading as strength.
Oh, he hates that shit. So again, Mr. Trump does not like to be called out by Mr. Newsom. So this was some of the statements that he made. Then I've got a couple of interesting truths that I'll play for you as well, as we're attempting to make the case here, right, for the truth about what happened on the ground compared to what Mr. Trump is attempting to tell his mouth-breathing, Gomer, smooth-brained, ignorant base.
We're talking about unrest in American cities. You said, quote, "We have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor." What changed now? Why is it to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, the biggest change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor. So I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And If I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. You had a disaster happening. And
really?
They now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way, and he said, well, we're lucky we did this because they were overwhelmed. You saw what was happening. So we did the right thing. Everybody agrees to that. But you have a governor who let the city burn down, didn't want water to be sent down to him. I sent billions of gallons of water. I wanted to do it in the first time.
Turn on the water.
They wouldn't do it over. I don't know. They have environmental reasons, but there were no environmental reasons. It's I think it's just a political philosophy. But it's lucky for the people in Los Angeles and in California that we did what we did. We got it just in time. It's still simmering a little bit, but not very much. Yeah, please.
So again, the amount of lies there was crazy. This was just 3 hours ago. If our troops didn't go into Los Angeles, it would be burning to the ground right now, just like so much of their housing burned to the ground. The great people of Los Angeles are very lucky that I made the decision to go in and help. Okay, the incompetent governor of California, he is so triggered by Gavin Newsom. I want to make it clear, somebody made a comment in the chat. If Gavin Newsom is the candidate for president in 2028, he will get my vote. I'm just saying I want more progressives. He will get my vote because I know what's at stake. It may be a harm reduction for the next election. If that's the case, then sure. But I would like him to be more progressive, to be consistently progressive is the point. The incompetent, hold on, I got to do this. I haven't done this in a while because people ask.
The incompetent governor of California, incompetent is in all caps, by the way. The incompetent governor of California was unable to provide protection in a timely manner when our ICE officers, who had to wear masks because they may not be ICE officers, and we don't let anybody know that, great patriots they are, were attacked by an out-of-control mob of agitators, troublemakers, and/or insurrectionists. Make America great again. Oh, yeah.
We laugh so we don't cry. Yeah. So what he is saying is just not true. None of it. Remember, we had a conversation the other day when Felice and I were attempting to have a civil conversation with a mouth-breathing potato. That person, I asked the question and said, do you believe the events? I said, can you be objective? And he said, yes. I'm like, okay, we'll see. Do you guys remember this conversation? I said, do you believe that people who engaged in these activities in Los Angeles was an insurrection? And he said, yes. And I said, why? He said, because they attacked a federal building. I said, okay, so then you believe that anybody who attacks a federal building is considered an insurrectionist? Yes. I said, do you believe then the people who committed the same crimes on January 6th in Washington are insurrections? And his answer was no. Like, no. That's a cult. You denying the truth because you don't want to means you're in a cult. That was fucking wild. Do you guys remember that? That was like nuts. I'll admit I kind of trapped him a little bit because I knew where it was going to go. But like, what, dude? What? Okay. Did I cover this? I think I read this already. Yeah, I talked about that. Scaled down foodstuffs. We talked about that. We talked about the lack of a two-state solution because of Mike Huckabee and now the Trump administration. There's some reporting about Steve Bannon and Elon Musk going after one another. Okay, yeah. We know that Starlink is attempting to, the U.S. government is promoting some Starlink to be added to certain underserved countries. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Mr. Musk went on X last night and said, maybe while I'm looking at the stars, maybe I've been a little too hard on Mr. Trump. Dollar bills, Elon. Dollar bills. I get it. We talked about how the ICE raid at that children's birthday party was finally discovered. We know about that. We discussed RFK replacing 17 people within Health and Human Services who are responsible for vaccines, a crucial government panel of vaccine advisors. Yeah, we know that. We talked about his plan to take over Gaza. Let's see. Do I have anything else that I wanted to cover? I did talk about that. Oh, I've got a few things here. Okay, let me get through this. Tom Homan, since we're still talking about LA. I see you, Rusty. I'll get you 1 second. So we're still talking about LA. Don't forget, Tom Homan is the one. First of all, I look at the people in the administration, right? I look at how they wanted to fill out the profile of the Trump administration, and there was a strategy. He wanted people who looked good on TV, right? So he puts Triple K Caroline as the press secretary. He has Pete Kegsbreath as the Secretary of Defense. He's got Christy Noem, who's in her puppy love, as DHS secretary. They're the ones that get most of the airtime. Okay, they're the ones that get most of the airtime. Then, when they want to relay their message of toughness, they roll out somebody like Stephen Miller, although he looks like fucking Count Chocula. He does look like Count Chocula. Just popped into my head. Him and his hateful rhetoric, and then Tom Homan. I was going to say, but then in Tom Homan. So when they want to show their toughness, yeah, with his talons, Drea, exactly. When they want to show their toughness, they bring out Tom Homan. So he's already gone on the record saying that Gavin Newsom could be arrested. I don't know what for, but he could be arrested. Okay, so this is what, again, these are questions that are being asked of Tom Homan, and this is his response. So Jacob Soboroff is interviewing him, and this is what he talked about.
Get your response to Governor Newsom saying, essentially, that your actions here are provocative, and the quote that he used was sowing chaos.
So Governor Newsom's an embarrassment for the state.
What?
He's the one that's feeding this mantra. He supports sanctuary cities. He supports sanctuary laws. If he cared about public safety in the state of California, he would not have a sanctuary for criminals, where criminals get released to the streets of this state every day because of his policy.
What? I know that people in California have issues with Gavin Newsom, but they did elect him. And I know, Tom, that you have an issue with people who are, relatively handsome. I was going to say we don't observe and we don't judge, but Tom, my guy, I would not necessarily advocate for you being on a poster, but you do you, boo. In an attempt, again, this is part of the messaging, right? In an attempt to position Gavin Newsom as someone who's violating the law, he has done nothing other than be his dreamy self. Speaking of dreamy selves, good morning, Rusty.
Wow. Now that is an introduction.
I tell you, man, I'm here for you, man. I'm here to pump your tires, as they say.
Well, hey, let's take that offline.
By the way, thank you for being part of that chaos that ensued last night. That was wild. That was wild.
I didn't intend for it to take that direction, but screw it. Once it did, I'm on the ride.
Absolutely, me too. It was great.
Poor Felice.
Poor Felice. She kind of initiated it. She was the one that lit the match. It was great. It was the best. I loved it. Had a good time.
I'm in the same boat you are. If Gavin Newsom is the Democratic nominee, I will get behind him. Do I have issues with Gavin Newsom? Yes. Do I have issues with every politician? Yes.
Yep.
That's the point. They're human beings. They either make mistakes or they'll hold a position of their many positions that I'm not in favor of. That's called critical thinking, you dipshit MAGAs. I can sit there and look at my representatives that I voted for and say, yeah, I have issue with XYZ, but the bulk of what they're doing I'm in favor of, or I wouldn't have voted for them. And if they do something way off the rails, no, go away. I can acknowledge that my people can be wrong.
Yeah.
And what struck me when you played that quote from Monkey Face Tom is one, MAGA's going to eat it up.
Of course
MAGA's going to say, oh, they're all criminals. They're letting criminals run loose. I live here. I look around and go, where are all the evil, nasty criminals that Gavin Newsom's letting run loose?
Mm-hmm.
No. I will never forget, and I know it's an old stat. I'm sure it's different. But I remember I believe it was the film Bowling for Columbine. And people can have issue with Michael Moore. Sorry,
Michael Moore.
Roger Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Moore is totally different. With Michael Moore. Yeah, with Michael Moore, but he's never been, to my knowledge, he's never been sued for inaccuracies. And when he reports things, he's reporting like specific statistics and whatnot that were easily verifiable. And one of the things that struck me in that documentary was, and this is the early 2000s, crime, according to the FBI stat at the time, had gone down something like 30% since 1980. Yeah. But crime reporting had gone up 600%. And when you've got 24-hour news cycles, and now look at the glut we have of all these news stations, all these podcasters, you got to fill that time with something, and if it bleeds, it leads. Yeah, if it bleeds, it leads.
Sure.
And it's super easy to create this narrative that, oh my God, we're living in this Mad Max hellscape, when no, we're not, and the evil little brown people are coming to take your stuff. No, they're not.
No.
And you say that, and it doesn't get through their thick skulls. They're embracing terror. They're embracing, fear of other, and that's how cults work.
That's exactly how they work.
Yeah, you make them afraid of an other, and once you get them convinced of that, they don't want to sit down at table with them. They don't want to get to know them, because in their mind, they know everything they need to know.
Yeah, not just the cult, but that is a foundational tenet of fascism, like scapegoating and othering. Yep. Absolutely. There's a lot of crossover there. By the way, friends, the U.S. inflation rate rose in May 0.1%. So I share that with you because the promise was that inflation would be ended. So, of course, there's an immediate response from the White House. Remember how I tell you guys when he posts things in all caps, he does that because he wants their attention. He doesn't want you to think about anything else. So, again, the facts are such. The consumer price index increased 0.1% for the month, putting the annual inflation rate at 2.4%. Excluding food and energy, core CPI came in respectfully at 0.1% up, 2.8% compared with forecasts of 0.3% and 2.9%. So inflation went up. It's undeniable. The promises were made. So his response on True Social:
CPI just out. Great numbers. Fed should lower 1 full point, would pay much less interest on debt coming in. So important. In all caps. Because I need your attention. Look at me. Don't look at the fact that I'm taking away your rights. Don't look at the fact that I'm organizing a military parade. Don't look at the fact that I sent in the brown shirts into LA. Look at me and don't ignore what the data is, and just let me tell you that the CPI is great. Okay? Thanks for listening to my TED Talk.
Like, I mean, Inflation is up. Okay? It's up. It's not down, or it's not ended like he promised. It's up. So, yeah. There's that.
You know, if somebody were to ever say, you know, Mr. Trump, we really think you ought to give a TED talk, he's going to say, who's Ted?
It's true. He is going to say, thank you for fixing your hair, Victoria, for showing up. I appreciate that. We turned the light on.
I've had an exciting morning.
Well, especially now that you're on top of the clown.
Exactly.
I mean, it's most people refer to it as a nooner. Apparently, that doesn't matter for Victoria.
No, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, Steve.
Hey, hey.
Anyway,
now.
I decided to go to my local town hall for my state senator this morning at 9 a.m. because that's when she decided to host it. Hello, Olive.
How did that go?
So, shit show. Well, she wanted everyone to introduce herself because there's probably like 20-ish people in the room. So I introduced myself as the congressional challenger to Scott Desjardins, which I politely found out that is one of her friends. And not only does she know him well, he came to her house so that she could convince him to run for office.
Interesting.
So I love that. So now anyway, it was a really interesting thing. I spent a lot of time listening. Janice Boland has been in office since 2000, I think for 13 years. So I can't remember. I think it was like 2000, maybe 10. No, I don't know. I can't math this morning. Anyway, all that to say, one of the questions I did ask her about was the House bill that went through that makes it illegal for you to knowingly or unknowingly help a undocumented immigrant. And so I asked her about that. Hold on. And she basically said,
Victoria, I didn't catch it. Did you say this was state or federal?
state.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
my AirPods decided to cut out on me. Hold on.
A Tennessee state House bill making
Tennessee
it
State
illegal
House
to
bill. Okay.
aid and abet, basically, or whatever that might be, or to assist an immigrant, undocumented.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it basically, Tennessee has 3 bills that specifically address undocumented people within the state of Tennessee. This is one of them. It's an Anne Frank bill. That's what Tennesseans are calling it. It like knowingly or unknowingly housing an undocumented immigrant. The point of it is for us to not protect them and to not help them at all. No quarter, essentially. So I asked her about that. And she said that yes, she did in fact vote for it after making a snarky comment about not knowing the house number bill, which is fine, whatever. Okay, cool. And so I was like, but if they enter, like, do you believe in the Constitution? She says, absolutely, I do. And she started listing them off, and I was like, so you believe in the Constitution, but you're okay with this? And she was like, they don't have rights when they're here. And I was like, that's not what the Constitution says.
Wow.
Literally, I have a whole recording of her saying, and I said, so you are saying that if you step foot on U.S. soil and you are not a U.S. citizen, that you do not have the right to due process? And she wouldn't answer the question. I was like, so you're saying yes, right? That's what you're saying. And she says, I do not agree with you. And I was just like, you're literally saying your whole chest, you step on U.S. soil and you do not have right to due process. She's like, they're illegal immigrants. I didn't even say, like, I was like, doesn't matter what their status is. It matters that we give them the right to due process. And she was just like, they don't deserve due process.
The next time, I mean, the question would be like, I don't really care what you believe. It's what the Constitution says. It doesn't matter. I believe that I can play shortstop for the Red Sox. I know there's no fucking way it's going to happen, but the conversation specifically about the Constitution is, look, I don't give a fuck, you Nazi, what you believe. The Constitution says they have rights.
Yep.
So are you saying that you don't agree with the Constitution? Like, that's the next conversation, right? I think that's where we should,
Well,
like, okay.
That's when the room kind of decided to start yelling at me. There was a guy in the back, and he was like, let her answer. She's answered your question. There was like 2 or 3 people who were like, she's answered your question. She's answered your question. And then they were mad that I was grilling her. And I was like, no, she is yes, she answered my question, but I have the right to ask these questions. I have the right to push back on this. Like, and he said something about like not being polite or whatever, and then called me sweetheart. I literally turned around and said, don't patronize me. Like, he was like, and you're running for Congress? Yes, bitch, I am. I didn't say that. I wanted to. My brain did. And it was just a really interesting interaction because I also pushed back on her. She didn't vote no on the voucher bill here in Tennessee, but when I pushed back on her reasoning why she voted, and I used the word, I described it only benefits rich people. And she's like, rich isn't a bad word. Did I say it was a bad word? Janice? Did I say it? Did I say that? I was like, well, there are levels of rich that are not okay. And she was like, rich isn't a bad word, and I got upset about that. So I made a lot of friends today, guys.
Doing the work, though.
There was something very telling in what you said. When she said they don't deserve
exactly.
Due process.
Yeah.
That is an absolute dog whistle. 100. There
were some others in that. And at her there were so many dog whistles, Rusty. There were so many.
It's I'm going to dehumanize them. I'm going to rile up the people in the room who are all for dehumanization and let them convince themselves that they're the moral authority here. Yeah. That's just disturbing.
And they were like, would you let someone in your house? And it went to the house thing. And of course, it's not a debate, so I can't be like, that's not a factual conversation. Like, that is not, it is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's an apples and oranges argument, because that's not what we're saying here. I'm not saying that it's not, they shouldn't have crossed the border. I'm saying, do they have the right to due process once they cross the border? You still have rights if you come in my house. I can still get charged with a crime if you come in my house and I respond. Like, the idea that somehow, like, they don't deserve the right to due process, the dehumanization. I mean, she said some other things, like talking about protecting our heritage. And I was like, ooh, white supremacist.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things she said in, like, her initial, like, little, like, thing when she started. And I literally, I was recording all of this. So I have all the recordings. And I was just like, our heritage, what is there to preserve? Janice, you white as fuck. Like, what are you preserving here? And I was like, it's a dog whistle. Because I don't talk about preserving our heritage. What do I have to preserve? Literally, like, I wanted to say, Janice, I think it's interesting that you went to the heritage thing, because I have a direct descendant to a Mayflower person who was on the Mayflower. And I'm over here not trying to protect any of that. I'm like, no, we need to teach that history. It was interesting. I'm sad that I had to leave early for my liberal job.
Well, none of us should be surprised. I mean, we talk about how funny that people in the conservative side want to defund public education, but that's a whole different conversation. I have a couple more bits of sound that I want to play for you guys before we wrap today. So, as we know, the president has been. There was a lot of rhetoric prior to the election about the white chalky substance that was found in the White House. Remember, everybody remembers that conversation about what it was. Everybody wanted to blame on Hunter. People said it was Joe. Nobody fucking knows. I mean, somebody knows. I don't know. Who gives a shit? Somebody brought it in. It was in the. If you've ever been to the White House on the tour, it's where you drop off your shit. There's people in and out. That's where people stage for the tour of the White House. So Mr. Trump was asked this question about Elon, because Elon's schmug use is highly documented. Just watch and this is not about people struggling with substance use disorder. This is just about what we saw. So this is Mr. Trump's response when asked if he thinks Musk ever had schmugs at the White House.
There was this New York Times report that he did not want to talk about, Elon Musk, that alleged that he, towards the end of his time in the White House, was blurring the lines between recreational use of drugs and medicinal. Do you think he ever had drugs here at the White House?
I really don't know. I don't think so. I hope not.
Oh, I don't think so. I hope not.
Look, I wish him well. You understand. We had a good relationship, and I just wish him well.
Okay. I really don't know. I don't think so. I wish him well. Okay. Well, I mean, listen, Mr. Trump. Elon was high as fuck numerous times when he was in the Oval Office having conversations with you. High as fuck is probably an understatement. I'm talking like a 4-day Fish concert high. Day 2.5 when it starts to peak. Like that moment. That's what Elon was.
I love the way the question was structured, that, he's blurring the lines. No, he was blurring his vision.
I just saw Fish Trucker. I said that for you, my guy. I got you, buddy. Like I said, hey, listen, I've been to a few of those Fish concerts in my life. So I'm speaking from a place of perspective. Okay?
Isn't this the same dude who was all about Hunter Biden's?
Absolutely.
Abuse? So
absolutely.
You don't care that someone that you know? Oh, color me unsurprised.
Absolutely. And then this last little bit of sound here, and then I'll give my panelists a chance for final words. This speaks to when we talk about government overreach. If anybody wants to think that using the National Guard, which is no longer the National Guard because of Article 10, they're now the U.S. Army on the streets of L.A., and then backed up by the U.S. military. If anybody wants to think objectively that that's not heavy-handed or government overreach, I don't know what the fuck you're smoking. You were probably at the same Fish show. A different conversation. Mike Johnson, doing the rounds in an attempt to kind of justify what's going on, was asked a relatively, I thought, simple question. Well, here's the sound. You can make your own opinions.
Secretary Hegseth said that active duty Marines there at Camp Pendleton, there by San Diego, are on high alert and could be mobilized. Could we really see active duty Marines on the streets of Los Angeles?
One of our core principles is maintaining peace through strength. We do that on foreign affairs, domestic affairs as well. I don't think that's heavy-handed. I think that's an important signal. You don't think sending
Marines into the streets of an American city is heavy-handed?
We have to be prepared to do what is necessary, and I think the notice that might happen might have the deterrent effect.
Okay, I'm sorry, but the Speaker of the House does not think having the United States Marine Corps, who we learned from veterans, we learned from Matt last night, who are trained primarily to be one job, the tip of the spear, lethal force. In his mind, that's not heavy-handed. It's just the threat. Okay. Everybody, thank you for allowing me to spend a lot of time talking about healthcare. Hopefully people have, my desire is for folks to understand what exists outside the borders of our country. You know, how we're bordered on the north by Canada, on the east by the Atlantic Ocean, on the west by the Pacific Ocean, and on the south by Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico. There's a body of water that exists between Florida and the southern states and Texas. It's referred to as the Gulf of Mexico. Just wanted to remind folks of that. So when we spend time talking about healthcare systems around the world, we're getting fucked by our healthcare system. A for-profit industry that attributes that $4.5 trillion that we spend, 17% of our GDP goes to support that. Average Americans are getting hosed to the tune of $14,000 per month. Medicare for all would give you universal coverage. Healthcare, medical, dental, vision, mental health, ambulatory, recuperative, rehabilitation for half that. For half that money. For half that. And we could have a happier, healthier society. I would suggest that you demand it. If you're in Tennessee and you want to vote for Victoria, and Victoria is offering you little bits and pieces of the ACA, say, fuck you, Victoria. I want universal health care. Demand it. You deserve it. You've earned it. Ask for it. Demand it. Final words from you, Victoria.
Yeah, today is a good day to hold your representatives accountable. For those of you asking in the chat, it was state senator in Tennessee, Janice Bowling, who made these comments. I do have video I'm going to try and post up later. It's just of her talking. And today's a good day. Like, get out, do the thing. If you can't do that, activism is a muscle. So pick one thing that you would like to get involved with because it's important. And today would be a good day to donate to my campaign because, I am a small dollar donation candidate and I would like to keep it that way. So stay hydrated. Vote blue.
I love that. Rusty, final thoughts, friend?
I'm sorry. I totally checked out after Victoria offering bits and pieces. But anyway, so no, if you know me at all, you know that the one strength I have when it comes to discussing these things with MAGA and with lecturing MAGA is taking things to the next logical step. And that is something they are grossly incapable of. And, I think that when we're in discussions with people on the fence, not MAGA, they're gone, they're lost, good luck, you're on your own. But with people who are on the fence or people who did earnestly vote red because they thought it was better for the country, they thought it was better for business, it really wasn't coming from a place of hate with them. Those 4 people. We need to let them make their statement and move it to the next step. Like, it's a good idea for the U.S. Marines to go in and, occupy Los Angeles. Okay, you're talking about a force that General Douglas MacArthur referred to as America's assassins. That's what you want walking the streets of Los Angeles.
Yeah, the ones that ran the ones that ran through clouds of mustard gas to meet their objective.
Yeah. These are the people you want walking the streets of LA, looking at American citizens, not, and when you've got fearless leader up there referring to anybody on the left as an enemy of the people, and then take America's assassins and you point them in that direction. If you're not disturbed by that, you are irredeemable. But for those of you who are disturbed by it, for those of you who do say, hey, no, this is a bridge too far, okay, let's look at step 2. What happens after that? What happens when, not if, but when somebody screws up? Somebody makes a mistake. Whether it's a kid throwing a rock or a gung-ho ICE agent, because we know they're not trained well, or a conflict between an LAPD and the U.S. Marine Corps, where LAPD is saying, nope, this is our line in the sand. This is a giant powder keg. And why in the world you would be okay with that? It just tells us everything we need to know about you. Get out of the way. Let the grown-ups talk. So
I totally agree. In the worst possible case scenario could certainly happen, and we certainly don't want to see that, which is why we talk about it. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, mods. Special thank you to Brooke, to Lori, to Karen, and to E for your contributions to support Nikki and Brett getting the hell out of Uvalde. I will share those donations. Last plug, within the link tree that's in my bio, the first link that you'll see is the GoFundMe for Nick and Brett, for Nikki and Brett, obviously our friends. And I think we can all come to an agreement that they have been through more than any humans should ever have to go through. So we are trying to raise money to help them get the hell out of bosses or get the hell out of Uvalde. I don't know what their future plans are, but you can find the information in the link tree. Their GoFundMe is there. So thank you, everybody, for contributing today. We're going to rate our friend Monida. You guys know Monica, Moniduh. Monida. Tell her we said hello. Thank you, Victoria.